turn one, that was an absolute disaster.
Oh, he spun!
Oh no! That's massive for Adam!
All over the rear bumper of spin, mate. These guys are hitting each other like nothing we've ever seen before.
G pulls out to the outside. Here we go again.
AEDST, he's going to go for a move here. The two Ferraris in front of him.
G went wide. G's in
Oh!
trouble with Schumacher. Oh, good contact.
Oh, massive contact there.
This is going to be an incredible finish for these two.
The speed, the overspeed happening. They're going to go 3 wide into
Oh.
turn 1.
There's contact there from Crazy Good Kung Fu on the way in. He tries to retrace and gets his way.
Shoved out wide. Oh, huge contact.
This is fantastic. On the outside though in turn one.
As he shots it down the inside anyway. What is this? Oh my gosh! What a move from GTR!
Good evening and welcome Sector 1 Sim Racing fans from Australia, New Zealand and around the world. Welcome back to another round and a new track for the championship season this week for the Sector 1 World Championship here at Fuji Speedway in Japan. Very quite relevant that we're in Japan at the moment with the Formula 1 Championship currently sitting over in the Asian region at the moment and going to Japan next week, although a different track in the form of Suzuka. But good to be here in Japan. We've got some great action coming up for you guys this evening, starting off with Division 3 and then finishing up with Division 1 afterwards. 2 standard length races this evening, so we're back and done with the sprint rounds and enduros for the season. And it's going to be a great night of racing. I'm starting to think. I am joined for the first race by Crazy Good Kung Fu. How you doing, CGK?
Doing very, very good, Adam. Thank you very much, and thank you for the introduction. Looking forward to this one very much. A bit cloudy out there for these chaps, isn't it?
Yeah, so the weather, we're thinking will play a part in some races for this round. It tends to be a little bit up and down over here in Japan. But for Division 3, the forecast is mostly free of rain. Is that the case?
That is the case. Division 3 kind of drew the right straw, I suppose you could say, and they have cloudy weather with a bit of sun at the end. Not the same, sadly, for Division 1, 2 or 4, so a bit lucky then.
Early days for the forecast for next weekend, but yes, Division 1 this evening, expecting a little bit of rain towards the end of the race. Now, you might have noticed, some of you in the chat, that we are missing, or we have a bit of a change of face this week in the commentary booth. So my name is Atom. If I didn't already introduce myself, I can't actually remember if I went through that. But usually for Group A, we would either have Lenosis, our primary Group A commentator, or Brent commentating. But this week, both of those guys could not make it into the box. I think Karen had too many deeds last night, and Lenosis is stuck up on the Obsession podcast at the moment. They've trapped him in the podcast room and he can't get out. So we've had to call me in for this evening, and I'll be taking care of your Division 3 and Division 1 guys today. I think we are just about ready to get cracking with this qualifying session. We're going to have a quick look at the Division 3 standings while we're here. So here's a look at our first group of action this evening. Mr. Bumcrack leads the championship from Freelix, followed by Boybagum and Budsy just outside the top 3 there. Now, CGK, you are much more familiar with this group than I am. What do you think of the championship standings as they sit at the moment, and do you expect us to see a finishing order similar to that tower?
So it's been a really, really interesting season with Div 3. Really good racing between all of those on track. Mr. Mayor there, Mr. Bumcrack, he has been leading the way for Kraken Esports pretty much throughout the entire season. The closest championship contender there, Freelix, for Respawn Esports. There's only about 11 points separating them. So it's still all to play for that top spot. Mr. Bumcrack certainly hasn't got it in the bag at this stage. And I'd also mention that third spot for Boybegum is no... there's certainly a bit of contention for that too. He's on 259 points, and he's got Budsy for ISA Esports on 229 behind, as we do have Gur for Dadson Racing Team on 221 points. So things are still actually all to play for at this stage, and this race and the last two, I think, races we've got after this are going to play a big factor in it. Mr. Bumcrack has had a couple of performances that were maybe not super ideal in the last few. He did get a win in one of the races last week out at Atlanta, but yeah, like I said, there's still all to play for in this series.
How entertaining was that sprint round last time out?
Atlanta really gave us a show. It did. I mean, in the Group 4 cars as well, I think it would have been a little bit too fast in the Group 3 cars there, although a lot of fun, I have to admit. But even in the Group 4 cars, that was something special. It really, really was. And yeah, of course, 2 races as well. So we got double the action, double the trouble.
It was great, and it was tough to participate in, and the strategy played a huge part in that one. Have you seen the sort of strategies that the guys are throwing out there for this round this evening?
Not as much. There was a lot of speculation as to whether the weather was going to come in or not. So some of them have an idea of what's going on. I suspect some of them are going to play it by ear. The usual strat, though, will take place. Sort of the top 5, top 6 will probably opt to start on the soft tyre, and the rest will start on the medium tyre. But the medium tyre has certainly been going fairly long at a circuit like this. So I think we'll see an interesting call between the medium tyre and the soft tyre. There will be a changeover period. 24 laps here today, of course. So if you can get 9 or 10 laps out of those soft tyres, you'll be in a really, really good position in this race.
Yeah, and fuel saving, as usual, I'm sure will play a part for these guys. It tends to do that fairly often. But yeah, no serious weather on the radar for Division 3. So that means we're dealing with mandatory compounds once again here at Fuji.
Correct, yes. Mandatory racing soft, mandatory racing medium, and to your point, the fuel is going to be the big constraint here. So even if you make softs go 11 or even 14 laps, doesn't matter, because your fuel's going to come into play. So there could be an interesting little strategy here on the mediums to try and do a bit of a fuel saving stint on that. But of course, if you're fuel saving and on the mediums, you're losing quite a lot of time on track. So I do wonder, it's going to be an interesting one, a little bit touch and go here, I suspect, today for the drivers.
All right, we'll get further in depth onto the strategy as we get closer to the race, but we are mid-qualifying now, as demonstrated on your screen here at Fuji. We're on board now with Mr. Bumcrack as he comes into the final sector. Now, this section is really difficult, and it's a section that a lot of drivers really dislike. What are your thoughts on it, CGK?
I'm one of those weird people, I suppose, that absolutely love it. I mean, I really don't like turn 4, turn 5, the sweeping right-hander. I don't enjoy that part, but that's because I always get it wrong, more so than disliking the actual track. But no, I mean, as Sissling Sausage and Budsy takes the top pole, Budsy again keeps it the Stranger in P2. I love that last sector. It's absolutely beautiful. It's a real test of your skill and racing around there. Do you have enough? Essentially, it's the talent sector. Do you have enough talent to get around it?
Yeah, it's a tight technical section, nice balanced track around here. So we've just seen everyone set their sort of first provisional lap times. We've got Daz there coming across the line, and one more across as well, as the Stranger goes purple through Sector 1, but appears to have bailed out of the lap. So everyone with a representative lap time on the board now. Budsy with provisional pole for ISA Esports. So your teammate, CGK, were you expecting that?
No, it wasn't actually with the Porsche. I mean, the Porsche has occasionally had some issues with its rear-wheel, sort of MR nature of it, a lot of torque going to the rear tyres, so I wasn't expecting it to be particularly good out of some of the corners, but actually, that looks like it's actually quite good here, so I'm quite happy to see that happen. It's clear by 0.7 of a second from the Mercedes AMG of Gur, so Dadson Racing Team there has got a little bit of work to do with Gur, but Gur, we know he's quick, and it's he's someone who can be a bit of a person who comes out of the woodwork on occasion here, and this might be it, because that Mercedes is really good off the line too. He's proven that in every single race this year, making up a couple of positions on the line quite happily every single time. So I'm not too worried about where Gur qualifies qualifies, but he'll have a good run out. But yeah, as you said, Budsy has been on a really, really good run there in that Porsche, and I'm stoked to see it being so competitive so far.
I imagine the Porsche's got quite a strong point in the last sector there that we were just talking about, and
Yes.
probably that sweeping right you mentioned as well. But I imagine it gets eaten up a little bit on the straights, most likely.
Yeah, that's correct, and the slipstream will be critical for the Porsches here today. But, you know, the Supras, they've got incredibly good top speed, and that'll really help them out on this long, long straight. This is one of the longest straights, I believe, in any circuit around the world, other than something like Route X or something, which is just, you know, completely fictional. But this is certainly in the form, you know, in any calendar on motorsports, this is one of the longest straights in the world, and it is really, really cool to see it. But as you said, really balanced track, because you've got that infield section with all those tight corners where, you know, if you've got a car that's got decent aero or, you know, whatever the advantage may be, and not necessarily top speed, you can make up a lot of time in those corners and potentially save a lot of tyres.
I wonder how the length of the straight compares to something like the Kemmel at Spa. Both very, very long power sections, and like you say, the Supra with a lot of straight line speed down this one with a good advantage there. And that Ferrari as well, actually, now that I mention it, probably going to struggle in that straight line. The Ferrari, how much do you know about the straight line speed of that car?
So the Ferrari's been pretty okay for the most part, as far as I can tell, in terms of top speed. I don't think it's completely on it in terms of the Supra's top speed, and the Supra does seem to be able to get up to that top speed pretty quickly as well. But the Ferrari's been great out of the exits of the corners, and that can really help because you can get up sort of in a sort of comparable way to the top speed of the car. Once it does get to its top speed, it is a quick thing. It is a quick thing in a straight line for sure, but it's also reasonably stable in the corners, which is pretty handy. I don't know as much about the Ferrari, admittedly, as the Porsche, but that's from what I've seen. That's what I would gather. So.
Well, the Porsche is one of those MR cars that kind of handles a bit more like an FR. It's very, very stable and easy to control, and you know, just a good all-round car. We saw it last year in the World Finals for Gran Turismo for the Manufacturer Series, performing really well until they had a bit of an accident that put pain to their race. But definitely a very, very competitive car. And surprising to see only one team picking it this season. So, to be fair, I don't think we've seen a win from the Porsche yet this season. Correct me if I'm wrong. But
Yeah, I think
sure
you're
you
right,
would
and
know.
I think you're right on that. Actually, we haven't. So it really is. I mean, I think Black Project and the team he's driving for are the only ones that have chosen that car. I mean, it is an MR car, as you said. So on most circuits, it's going to handle it pretty well for the most part. I mean, it might not have the ultimate top speed of some of the FR cars that are on the grid. It might not have that ultimate low speed handling that some of the FR cars and some of the other MR cars have, like the Porsche, for example. But in the hands of someone like Black Project, he really makes that car come alive, and I think that's part of it as well. I'd say it's almost similar to the McLaren. The McLaren's a bit of a beast in some cases, but when you've got someone who's really, really used to it, and the person here running the McLaren is going to be Boybegum, then yeah, it can come alive.
that McLaren as well, I think, is quite a good car around this track. It seems to be that most cars are not at a serious disadvantage around here. That McLaren tends to really get up and boogie towards the end of the straight, but its acceleration, not so good. I've heard from a couple of the CP guys. It really struggles coming out of the corner. It's got good traction, and it's really easy to lay the power down, but for some reason, in those lower gears, it just does not get moving for a little while.
Yeah, that's correct, and I've experienced that myself as a bit of a McLaren, what's the word, simp. I was about to say fan, but it wouldn't be completely true, because it's like super fan. Enthusiast, yeah, that's right. But no, you're right. The McLaren's a special one to drive, and you really have to nail high apex speed. You have to nail corner entry. It really focuses on a different philosophy for corner entry. You want to focus on that slow and fast out, and of course Bruce McLaren would, I'm sure, condone that kind of activity. Slow and fast out, optimize the corner exit, get your foot down before the apex, and if you can do that, then you're going to be driving that thing pretty quick.
Now, I haven't been paying too much attention to the wind direction or speed so far this qualifying, but we're looking at a easterly at the moment at 2.4 meters per second. Assuming that hasn't changed from the start of the session, well, actually, I say that. It appears to be changing now, 2.5 meters, so the wind is increasing the speed. And down that long straight, that's actually quite important to your lap time. So do you think we might have seen the best laps be run and done already?
I don't think so, no. I mean, down that main straight, if you've got that tailwind, it really, really helps out. However, that direction that's coming in the easterly direction, turn 1 is going to be helped by that, and also you're going to have a little bit of help throughout. What would that be? The sort of last on the back straight, just a little bit, and maybe a couple of the corners into sector 3 as well. But yeah, overall, I think that wind direction is probably still a bit balanced overall, but yeah, that main corner that's going to help is going to be turn 1, which is kind of good. Get a bit of extra speed under braking, but on terms of the actual cars fighting against that down the main straight, it's not going to be necessarily ideal.
Now, we're on board with the Stranger here in a car that it's another one of those cars that's only been selected by one team this season, so we haven't got really a lot to compare it to. But the Alfa Romeo 4C Group 3 tends to be a sort of jack-of-all-trades car. Do you know if these guys have been fairly on pace with it around here?
It's been an interesting one with the Stranger. I mean, the Alpha has been interesting. We've just... I think the people are coming across the line now for the end of their qualifying. So we are all done. That's right. We'll go through the results. I think there's a couple... No, there's actually only one person on the track, and who is that? That is Prua at the moment, who's not set a particularly good time here just yet in that Supra, which is a bit of a surprise, so maybe having a couple of issues. But overall, the Alpha, as you said, jack of all trades, really depends on the strategy. So if you get the strategy right, that Alpha can be right up the top of the field. And we've seen that with the Stranger quite a number of times this season. A notable standout would have been Interlagos, where the strategy really came into play. So fuel saving really good, tyre saving really good in that 4C. Not the fastest in the corners, not the fastest on the straights, not the most stable car sometimes because it is MR. But overall, if you can get the strategy right, that car can be right on top of the grid.
So here's your quality results from Division 3 here at round 10 at Fuji Speedway. Budsy takes pole position by half a second there. So we talked about it in the early stages and didn't really touch on it too much, but your teammate pole position there, CGK. What are your thoughts, mate?
Oh, it's a stunning job there by Budsy. He is clear of the field by over 0.5 of a second. So he's really put in a stunning lap. And I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that all the cars were fighting that headwind down the straights, and maybe a bit of top speed disadvantage was wiped away by that. And through the corners, that wind was probably quite beneficial in some ways. Not going to say it's all down to wind, because Budsy's obviously driven that car to absolute perfection today and put it directly on pole.
Boy begun P2 in the 650S, one of the quick cars down the straight. He comes in just over half a second behind Budsy there with Graham, or Gura17, and P3 for Dadson Racing. So he's 7/10 off that pole position and just shy of a 10.5 behind Boybegum. Prelix in P4 there for Respawn Esports. I'll get patriotic about that one. That's one of my guys. So he's just behind Graham there as well. With not too much of a gap. And the gap actually between the next couple of drivers, they're all quite small. You see there the gap between Stranger and Bumcrack is less than 0.02 of a second. So the margins were not too large. There's a big gap to pole position, but down the field, that mid-pack, it's going to be a really tight fight by the look of things.
Correct, yeah. Budsy is ahead by 0.5 a second. The next 0.5 a second entails 7 cars from P2 all the way down to Sizzling Sausage in P8 there, with Black Project just sitting slightly outside of that. So that is very, very close qualifying for the most part, except for obviously the Porsche driver, who's just decided to go and set an absolute mega lap and really solidify that pole position. Of course, in the race, he'll be starting with the equal gap to everyone else, but we'll see how that goes for him.
Yes, and importantly, a standing start. I would imagine the 911 would be quicker off the line than the 650S. Do you have any idea about that?
Yeah, so the 650S and the Porsche are both going to be a little bit iffy off the line. The Porsche can occasionally, if you get it in the right rev range, can actually get off the line pretty quick. But Gurr, putting it in P3, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Gurr get up into potentially P2 or P1 at the beginning of this race.
Mercedes quick off the line, and the other car that's quick off the line is the Ferrari of Black Project in P9 down there. So he's starting behind. If we look at our bottom end of our top 8 here, Sizzling Sausage in the Nismo GTR, and a couple of Supras in front of them there. So don't be surprised if you see the Ferrari find itself in P6 or possibly even P5 by turn 1. It's a fairly long run down to the first corner here at Fuji Speedway, and a very heavy braking zone. So there's plenty of opportunities for carnage down there and someone to shank one down the inside, as it were, here at Fuji at turn 1. Levensfield in P11 there, behind Killer on the Loose, and Daz in the BRZ for Deeds Racing. Pruski in P13 there. for Obsession Motorsport. So we will jump back to our initial screen here, and let's have a little bit of a more in-depth look at our driver standings for the season here. So here is your Division 3 standings as of the end of round 9 going into this round. So Mr. Bumcrack, who qualified, you may remember, in P6, he leads the way for the championship at the moment, and ahead of him in P4 on the qualifying grid is Freelix, his championship rival there in P2. Boybegum, who qualified P2, so it's all been flipped up the top end, and then there's Budsy in P4, who took out pole today, not far behind those guys on points either. And something else we need to get into tonight before we get cracking with our race is our teams championship as it sits at the moment. So we are really getting to the business end of this championship now, here being at round 10 and only 2 rounds to go after this. One Group 4 round and one Group 3 round, that being Suzuka and Monza for the last 2 rounds. So we'll get through Fuji and get to those 2 later on. But the Season 1, Sector 1 Teams Championship as it sits right now, Respawn Esports leads the way with just over 1,000 points there, ahead of Hooncorp Esports, who are driving the Nissan, and Kraken Esports in P3 there. So if you think about your lineup tonight, here in Division 3, we've got a Respawn Esports driver and a Kraken Esports driver competing for that championship here in Division 3, so they could really sway the way the Teams Championship goes as the season goes on. There's CP Motorsports in P4. They're the McLaren drivers, so keep an eye out for them. Dadson Racing Team in the Mercedes. We did talk about one of those here this evening, going to be good off the line. That's being driven by Graham, or Gur17. Doghouse Motorsport, the Alfa Romeo guys, so keep an eye out for the Stranger, looking to score some team points tonight here in Division 3. And Deeds Racing as well. ISA Esports, your pole sitter here in Division 3, driving the Porsche with 729 points down in about the mid-pack there. Obsession Motorsport, Blacklight, Brocchio 5, a new team this season. And Black Rose, also a new team down in P12. Lightning Motorsport and Red Mist Racing, a stalwart team of the Sector 1 Sim Racing Championship there down in P14. And just a reminder for what we are dealing with tonight, here is your track map of Fuji Speedway. Division 3 soft and medium tyres, and they will be running both of those compounds. And the hot tip is a one-stop from softs to mediums, or mediums to softs, whichever way you're going. Do you think a 2-stop is viable, CGK?
I suspect it might be, actually, in fact. So it just depends a lot on how you want to manage your fuel and how you want to manage the time lost in the pit stop. Big straight here today, so a second stop is going to be quite costly.
4.5 kilometers worth of racetrack and 16 corners around this circuit. A fantastic circuit and famous for its Super GT heritage. And I think now Super Formula as well racing here. But let's get to the thick of the action. I think we are ready to rock and roll for our race this evening. Our drivers will be going to the grid very shortly. What do you reckon, CGK? Shall we get this show on the road?
I think it is time to hit that big red button. Good luck to everyone on track. Let's get the proceedings started.
The drivers will take to the grid for 24 laps here at Fuji Speedway. Both tyre compounds, soft and medium, will be mandatory. And should be very interesting. A lot of different manufacturers on the grid, up and down, and hot picks, of course, to make it to turn 1 first of all, will be worth watching as well. So here we go. We'll go to the grid now. Here we see Budsy on pole position ahead of Boybegum beside him in the McLaren. Keep an eye out for the Mercedes of Graham there in 3rd place. The lights are up and ready to go. They're out, and we are off and racing. It was a fairly even start all round. There goes that Mercedes around the outside of Budsy there. Budsy drops to P3 as the McLaren gets a great start there as well. The Supra of Freelix in behind as well, going up the inside, so it looks like it might be 4 positions into the first corner here for Budsy as the Supra goes up the inside. The Ferrari's on the outside there on the way through the first corner as well, but no cars turned around, so fantastic racing from our drivers here.
That is the kind of start you like to see at this kind of track. Of course, that turn one can create a bunch of chaos. We've got another hairpin coming up in a few corners, but so far very good. Fortunate for Budsy, running very, very wide. Gerd just dropped a tyre onto the grass coming into one of the harder parts of the circuit. Careful to do that. That's not an idea. Freelix as well has a great start as well. Managed to get up ahead of Budsy as well. So Budsy is really, really lost out at the start of this race. Of course, we will do a tyre and fuel update later as well, so we'll bring you some information about some of that. But the Alpha of the Stranger holding that 5th position at the minute, doing pretty well. Here we go into that tight hairpin. We've got Carbonboy, Sizzling Sausage, Prua down the back of the field. Everyone gets through pretty cleanly for the most part. Now, someone who we thought was going to get a better start was Black Project. He's actually dropped to P11.
Oh, wow. He got shuffled out wide at the exit of turn 1, if I remember correctly. So he may have got the rocket start that they were used to seeing, as there's contact between him and the Deeds driver there as they head through the S's, and they're both going to lose out now to Levenspiel and Killer on the loose, Lightning and Red Mist respectively. The Deeds car on the inside and the Black Light car is hung out to dry there and drops to last place. And there's more contact there, and the Red Mist car is round. We've lost our Red Mist car, and it looks like a redress there from Daz. Great sportsmanship on display. There's Levenspiel recovering, and onto the straight they go, and a redress there from our Deeds driver.
That's right, we've got Freelix up in P2. He's just made a huge move on Gur into turn 1. Beautiful, beautiful move from Freelix. Used the slipstream very, very nicely. The Mercedes had no answer to that. And down the inside he went and through up into P2. And now he's only got 0.6 of a second ahead of him to Boybegum, who has gotten a lightning start there for CP Motorsports, but will have a bit of a challenge here because there's a Supra getting quite big in that rear mirror of his.
Well, we're just having a look at the replay now. There was a replay of the overtake from Freelix on Graham into turn 1. That speed of the Supra in a straight line, clearly making all the difference there, and almost completely ahead by the time they reached the braking zone, and nothing that Graham could do. So now he's going to have to hang tight and hope that his strategy comes back to help him later on. We've got a bit of action at the back here too, as the Obsession car goes down the inside of Mr. Bumcrack. That is Carbonboy having a look there, but he had to pull out of it, and the Stranger as well hanging tough there in P5.
Wisely so, as the Alpha of the Stranger was up ahead, and any big send of that corner can cause contact with the car ahead. And of course our championship leader, Mr. Bumcrack, is currently sitting in P6 in his Supra, and another Supra of course following behind in Carbonboy P6, P7 respectively. There's a little battle as well going on between Sizzling Sausage and Prua, which is something I'm keeping a very close eye on at the moment. But at the moment, Boybegum leads us away for the next lap 3 of this race, followed by Freelix and Gur.
So a little bit of history here between Prua and Sizzling Sausage, as you mentioned there, CGK. So these guys are very close together on track, and a great start for Pruski, I think. So he started dead last on the grid, so he's made a good rise up the field here to get up this far. Bit of contact between him and Sizzling Sausage there on the way into the corner, but Pruski makes it through, and now joins his teammate in P7 and 8 together.
Correct, a little bit elbows out there. Sizzling Sausage tried to close up the gap, force him a little bit wide into the corner, and ended up being a little bit rough on the elbows there, and same with Prua as well. It was a nice overtake though, overall done fairly well, and Sizzling Sausage will fall back to P9, but everything looking pretty stable around the grid other than that. Freelix is now putting a lot of pressure onto P1 of Boybegum, and they're going to go down into the hardest break, one of the hardest braking zones in this track, the second hardest braking zone I should say. Freelix looking up the inside, can he make it happen? He's hard on the brakes, doesn't get it slowed down. That McLaren looking very good. There's contact though between them. Freelix does back out of it, but that forces an alternative line there for the McLaren of Boybegum. He handles it well and remains ahead, parks it on the apex. Beautiful driving. Gur now being brought back into this fight. Now
the moves are happening as quick as we can catch them. There was also a really, really solid scrap into the hairpin there between the drivers of P5 all the way down to, I think, P9 there. The Stranger leading this train of cars and managing to hold on to P5 for now. It was hard to keep up with exactly what happened there, but it looks like Bumcrack getting very aggressive now on that P5.
Oh, contact!
Change.
Prua and Sizzling Sausage, sorry to interrupt Adam, but coming through the last corner, Sizzling Sausage decided to go up the inside, and Prua closed the door, and there was contact, and Prua was now dropped to P9, unfortunately.
It looks like a move for the leaders on. Here we go. The Toyota Supra up the inside of Boybegum in the McLaren. And does he get it stopped on the inside? He does indeed. and the lead has changed. We now have a Respawn Esports car leading the way from CP Motorsports here up the front. Will the CP car look to respond here? Not immediately, but it may come back later on in the race. Budsy as well is someone that we want to keep an eye on. He showed great pace in that qualifying session, but we've got to see if he can turn it into race pace here at Fuji Speedway.
That is correct. This little battle pack of 4 up the top, P1 to P4, has started to separate itself from the lead car of the second battle pack, which is the Stranger, who's just coming under a lot of pressure now from Carbonboy, currently in P6. So they'll have to back out here as they go down towards the braking zone. This could be a good point for an overtake. Can Carbonboy, he gets shoved, well, not shoved, but he moves slightly onto the grass there. He's side by side into the corner.
Oh, turned across there, the Stranger. Bit of contact with the front quarter of the Obsession car and ends up a little bit sideways, but manages to recover.
Oh,
and
more
we've got a
contact
loose
behind.
from the Kraken Esports car. That's our championship leader there in P10 now, who's dropped down. He's been caught napping by one of the cars behind, and there's another Obsession car there. Looks like it might have been a redress there from Carbonboy. We've missed all of that. It was so hard to keep up with.
Yeah, that's right. There's action literally happening everywhere on track. But you're right, Bumcrack and Carbonboy just coming together. And I think at the end of the day, Carbonboy had really nowhere to go. But he had also had no choice but to get on the accelerator.
So they've just fallen behind the Lightning Motorsports car now. And we've got Brewer and Sizzling Sausage together again on track. Let's have a look on board with Sizzling Sausage here and see what happens down to T1. So he bails out of that move, lifts off, conserves a little bit of fuel. So strategy now starting to come into this race a lot more. Look for that 150 meter board on the outside there. Big dive to the inside there by Brewer to defend that position. So clearly feeling very under threat here by the Black Rose Racing driver.
Correct. It's a nice little defensive move there. Sort of honed in on the inside of the corner, went into a bit of short line there and just parked it literally on the apex. So Sizzling Sausage had really no choice but to get out of that move, but he'll have another chance in a few corners time. There's still action happening all around the track. Here on the loose, picked up a 0.5 second penalty, served that on the previous straight. Now under pressure from Carbonboy and Bumcrack. Bumcrack trying to send it as well, but as you said, Sizzling Sausage and Brewer having a battle for the ages at the moment for P7 currently. That is quite the battle, and the top 4 continue to drive away with things.
On board now with Sizzling Sausages. Pruski goes deep into the chicane here. A lot of racing room given between these lads. That's very good to see through there, and he holds on to the position despite that mistake. But he's continuing to go wide here, so this is interesting. I wonder if Pruski's got some dirty tyres. Now, some of you may know Pruski by his more common name. Oh my goodness, he's very deep through there, but he comes back once again and still holds on to the position. I don't know how he's doing this. Down the inside there for Sizzling Sausage. So, Pruski, his nickname in the Sector 1 community is Wide Hips. Now, he earned that nickname for a defensive masterclass he put on back in, I think it was Season 3 of Sector 1 Sim Racing Championship, so a long time ago. He's been around for a long time, and the team owner of Obsession Motorsport here in Sector 1. Sizzling Sausage now getting close on the way towards the braking zone, and Pruski feeling that presence and taking the defensive line, getting out of the way at the last second, and Sizzling Sausage not able to make the move stick this time around. So these guys, it looks like they might go like this for the entirety of the race. Now up the front, we've got Freelix, who has leapt away to a 2-second lead now on lap 6 here. So he's got this race well and truly under control. But we're getting to sort of the halfway point in this stint, and it's worth noting at this point now that we don't know who's on which tyre. So it might be time for a APR Automotive tyre and fuel update.
I think that might be time indeed. So as the graphic does get brought up, I will take us away and run us through the grid and tell everyone what is going on with everyone's tyres. So starting, of course, with P1 in Freelix, who's driving away with things. As you said, he's currently on the Racing Soft tyres. Does explain a little bit about the good start that he's had and the ability to simply drive around Boybegum later in a couple of laps later. So Freelix on Racing Softs, about halfway through his fuel, just above that. Then we've got Boybegum in P2. He's on the Racing Medium tyres, which shows just how impressive it is to be keeping up with Freelix at all. He's on about the same amount of fuel. Gurr in P3, currently on the Racing Softs, and that explains exactly why he was able to launch so well, taking advantage of the Mercedes AMG and the softer compound because Boy Begum ahead of him at the start, and Budsy, who's behind him now in P4, were both on the medium tyres. Gurr sitting at 52% of his fuel, slightly less than the others, and Budsy, who's really doing some great fuel saving here. He's saving those medium tyres very, very well, and he's on about 60% of his fuel, so he's got better fuel and tyres than those ahead, and yet he's still holding on and keeping these chaps on us at the top. Down to
comparison between Graham and Felix for tyre wear.
Yes, we can indeed. Apologies, I forgot that part of the statistics there. So, Felix is currently used a lot of his tyres, that front left, looking pretty unhappy at about 45%. I'll quickly run through as well. Boy Begum has actually got slightly better tyre wear on most tyres, except for the rear left, than Budsy. But to compare Felix and Gurr, Gurr here is on about 65% of his tyres. So, Gurr is definitely doing better in terms of tyre life. Boy Begum's just gone very, very deep into the hairpin. Gurr follows him, and Budsy's just saying that, okay, you guys can just go ahead and do that. I'll save tyres and continue driving like a normal person. Nonetheless, Budsy has used about 80% of his tyres, so right now the tyre advantage in terms of the mediums between these two is Boy Begum over Budsy, although Budsy over all the tyres is looking a little bit better. And then Felix has definitely got the disadvantage against Gurr at this stage. So, yeah, that's going to be quite interesting. I suspect Felix is using just a little bit more of those tyres. Looking a little bit further down, now we've got Black Projects in the Ferrari. Well, he's made it up to 5th place now. So he went from 9th to 11th and all the way up to 5th due to a lot of the contact that was happening behind him. His racing softs looking okay at the front. The rears, though, looking pretty bad. 40% on that rear left, about 52% of his fuel, so saving fuel quite nicely. The stranger in the Alfa Romeo, who, by the way, has just lost this position of P5 to Black Project, now down in 6th place on the racing medium. So Black Project on the softs, the stranger on the racing medium tyre, and he's saved quite a lot. He's at 50% of his fuel and about 80% wear on those medium tyres. Prua down in P7. He's used about the same amount of front left tyre as Felix has, so those Supras are not doing particularly well on the racing soft tyres. Prua also on the racing soft tyre, so there might be a bit of a strategy coordination between the teammates, which is no surprise at all. He's used quite a bit of fuel though. He's on about 48% of his fuel remaining, but he has just come down the main straight, so that's where the fuel really does get burned. Our championship leader started on racing mediums, that's Bumcrack in P8. He's on about 49% of his fuel, and he's really looking after those medium tyres. So I get the feeling he might be trying to run as long as possible, but fuel will be the constraint as always. Behind him, we have Sizzling Sausage. He's on the racing medium tyre in that lovely GTR, and he is about 70% usage on the front left. So he's used a lot more of the racing medium than most others around him who are on the mediums as well, and he's about 49% of his fuel. Leaving Spiel, racing mediums, 90% wear, 48% fuel, looking pretty tidy there down in P10. He's got a bit of work to do to get back up, but currently sitting in the top 10, it's nothing to scoff at. Daz in the Toyota 86 there, looking pretty happy on his racing medium tyres, about 80% wear as well, so very equal to Levenspiel ahead. Has used about 47% of his, sorry, he's on about 47% of fuel, getting my numbers mixed around there at him. Killer on the loose, looking back here, 80% of his tyres are still there, so on the racing medium tyre, and we've got about 48% of his fuel left as well. And rounding out the field is Carbonboy, who's had a bit of unfortunate contact throughout the race, but currently holds the fastest lap. He's on the racing soft tyres. He's used about 40% on each of the tyres, so about 60% remaining on them, and about 45% remaining in the fuel tank.
Did he pit 2 laps ago?
That's a good question. I can't see that he did because there's no pit signal on his timing board, so no.
So our soft runners, Felix, Graham, who's now got the better of Boy Begum for P2, Black Project, and Prua. Is that everyone?
That's everyone except for also Carbonboy as well.
Carbonboy down the bottom. So who's got the... Yeah, okay, so all good. That concludes our APR Automotive Tyre and Fuel update.
Yeah, it's quite a lot of words to get through, it is, to be completely honest with you. Note on Felix at the top here, 10% of his front left now remaining, and Gurr is probably going to start closing that gap at some point, so got to keep an eye, but Gurr's also still used quite a lot of his tyre too, so, and only about 0.6 of a second to Boy Begum behind those two now. Getting pretty close, and Budsy's still in tow, just quite happy to sit behind us.
It's worth pointing out, as I have teammate insight, I know that Felix is driving on a controller which is probably part of the reason why his tyre wear is so severe. And that Supra as well is very, very harsh on its tyres, especially the front. So Graham on the softs in that Mercedes has got by the McLaren of Boivagam now for CP. And here you go, you're seeing now the Supra going deep at turn 1 as those tyres seriously wear out. They're looking about as useful as a phone protector case for a Nokia right about now as he comes onto the 10th lap here at Fuji Speedway. But he's pulled a decent gap to Graham, so he's got a fair bit of a buffer. The question is now, when does he pit? And if he pits now, can he go the 14 laps to the end on the mediums?
That's a good question. I do like that comparison of putting a foam protector on a Nokia. It's sort of like putting bubble wrap on a Volvo, really, isn't it? That's fantastic. I love that. Can he go that distance on the softs? I don't know. I mean, if I was him now, Felix up in the top, I'd be considering maybe one more lap on those tires, maybe two, if you really want to risk it. He's got a bit of time to burn back to Gurr though, so as long as he can figure out the fuel, and by the way, those two are equal on fuel usage, Gurr and Felix. If he can, if he can use that 3-second gap that he's developed that's a bit of a slide for Felix. He can use that 3-second gap, he can burn it away a little bit on a lap that doesn't have any tyres on it if he wants to, just to try and extend that stint as much as possible. But I don't know how fast that lap's going to be, Atom.
No, I don't know either. So he's run sort of 140s, he's now dipped into the 141s. It'll be interesting to see if he goes around again, because he's running a little bit slower than his usual pace there that last lap. We'll see what his lap time is this time around. I imagine it's again in the 41s. No, it's in the 40s. Okay, so he's still holding 1 minute 40 lap times, so he's looking okay for now. Black Project is one to watch as well, so he's trying to take time out of this front pack as well. He's got himself a nice bit of clear air now that he's got past the stranger in the Alfa Romeo for Doghouse down in P6, so he's in a good spot now too, after that massive battle pack behind him all got caught up with each other. The Pruett and Sizzling Sausage fiasco as it went along, and here we see Levenspiel as well going for a move on Sizzling Sausage down the inside into turn 1. Here we go, and a bit of contact on the way through, and very, very late on the brakes for the GDR, trying to go around the outside, can't quite make it work, and the red mist car goes through.
Yeah, that was beautiful there from Levenspiel. Tried to open up turn 1 a little bit, and that caused a bit of contact with Sizzling Sausage, who was having absolutely none of that. He's saying, no, if you're going to overtake me, you're going to have to do it with about a metre on track, which is completely within his rights to do so. Sizzling Sausage's medium tyres are starting to run a little bit low. Levenspiel's are much, much better. So Levenspiel at the moment has the tyre advantage out on track in this little battle pack. By the way, Pruett has dropped back into P8. So Mr. Brumcrack managing to get past him, and the reason being that Mr. Brumcrack's tyres are fresh as anything on the medium tyre, and Pruett's, who's on the soft tyres, got about as much tyre life as Felix has at the top. Do we know if Pruett's on the controller? I think, from memory, he might be, actually.
I don't actually know. I couldn't tell you. I would assume that he is on a wheel, but I could be wrong. But what's interesting to me now is this is Mr. Bumcrack. He has really settled into a rhythm here. And like you say, he's sorted out his tyres. There goes Felix into the pits at the end of lap 11. But Mr. Bumcrack really getting into a rhythm now that he's found some clear air. He's putting in solid laps, one after the other, and trying to get himself back up the field a fair bit. Black Project also into the pits there. Now down to P6. We'll have to see where these guys come out. There you go. Felix putting fuel on board, so he'll probably fill up all the way here. Graham assumes the lead of the race, just ahead of Boivagam on the medium tyre, and up the inside goes Boivagam here at the long right-hander of, I believe it's called 100R, and into the left of Coca-Cola corner. Yeah,
correct.
I do know my corner names. There you go.
You certainly do, and I have to admit, yeah, I have to admit as well. I mean, the Japanese track designers, while they're maybe slightly uncreative, it does actually help, because you can kind of look at the quarter angle and go, well, what's that? It's about 95. It's about 100. It must be 100R. Yeah. So occasionally does help, but no, compliment on your knowledge there of the circuit. It is a beautiful circuit, this Fuji Raceway. By the way, Pruett in P6 now under a huge amount of pressure from Levenspiel. Daz got past Sizzling Sausage, who's been really struggling on those medium tyres, but Pruett's tyres, he's got none at the front left. He's got no grip at all, so he decided to risk it. He had about the same amount of tire life as Freelix, who did decide to come into the pits. Oh, leaving Spiel up the inside there. There's no grip for Pruer, so he can't turn in onto the apex. Oh dear, oh dear. I don't know if we're actually focusing on this race or not. But
doing his best work once again. Look at that, defending from the Obsession Motorsport car, but through goes the Red Mist car into P6. He's on a massive charge in that Matilda's liveried vehicle here. The 111 car going around towards the final corner here. Wide hips doing what he does best once again, and holding up the guys behind him as much as he can, and actually doing a massive favour to his teammate there in behind, who has caught up a lot of time here in the late stages. So
yeah, and Carbonboy. Yeah, and Carbonboy has done a fantastic job saving those racing soft tyres. He's still got quite a lot of life. He's got more life in them than the racing mediums of Sizzling Sausage. So really doing a good job there as Carbonboy. Gurr into the pits, Boybegum, Budsy, and Bumcrack all into the pits. 3 medium runners into the pits on lap 12.
There's contact between the Deeds car and the Obsession car of, I think that was Pruer, into turn 1, and Sizzling Sausage takes advantage. Heads up into P3. Or assumes P3 for this point in the race. Levenspieel's got away from this group, but they are having a massive ding-dong battle here. P5-6. P4-5-6 down here. The Deeds car in the thick of the action here. Look at that, sideways on the exit of 100R on the way towards Coca-Cola Corner. And the teammates here doing their best Ferrari at Monza impression from the Grand Prix the other week, and going hard as nails at each other, and the Deeds car gets sideways again and drops out of the fight.
So the Deeds car there was being held up significantly by Pruer. Pruer's got absolutely no grip at all. So that corner that goes to the left-hand corner where we saw the initial bit of contact, Pruer just doesn't have any grip, so he can't go any faster than that. The Deeds car just didn't really take that into account. Carbonboy just knew it and went round the outside, but good job by these teammates. They're indeed having a bit of a Minister of Defence moment here for Pruer, so that is a very, very well-deserved nickname it is for Pruer, and he's doing a really, really good job there, but he'll have to come into the pits because he's got no tyres left. He's almost got no fuel left as well, so he will be in this lap. There's a few interesting little things happening out on track. Most of them, especially the top runners, have decided to half this race, but the Stranger, currently in the lead of this race, he's got potentially a couple more laps of fuel on board, holding the racing mediums went very, very deep into turn 1. Levenspiel now comes into the pits. Carbonboy comes into the pits, and so does Pruer. Kill under the loose. I suspect, there we go, yep, Daz as well.
Now, this is interesting. So Carbonboy came in, and you said that he had quite a lot of wear left on his soft tyres. So he's come in just for fuel. He is going to change the tyres and presumably go to the end. I think he's on the 2-stop. I think he's already done a pit stop and we've missed it.
See, it feels like he might have, but early on it just didn't seem like he could have had time to do it in the first 7 or 8 laps. I'll keep an eye on his timing sheets though, Adam. It's a good point. He might well be on that 2-stop strategy. Now the telltale sign will be if he comes out on racing softs, then he's either going for a 2-stop strategy, but no, he's on the medium. So, actually, the question still remains. Actually, now that I think about it,
two stints on the mediums, perhaps, but he had such good wear on that soft tyre.
Oh, exactly. I mean,
Sizzling Sausage and the Stranger have gone very long here on their tyres. Freelix, who stopped first, is now P3 and only 5 seconds behind Sizzling Sausage, but he's under immense pressure from the ISA Esports car, your teammate of Budsy here.
Budsy is on the racing soft tyres, Freelix is on the mediums, so Budsy, having done such a good job to keep up with that top 4 pack, I mean, that time difference, which was about 2.5 seconds between the top of the pack that he was following, and Freelix was about 2.5 seconds, that is disappeared. Absolutely disappeared, and Freelix is looking all sorts of squiggly as he tries to put as much power down on track, but those mediums are not complying at all, and Budsy is just going to go, brilliant, I'll have that slipstream from you, Mr. Supra, that's going to help me out, and this is going to be a mega lap for Budsy, a critical lap, because he's going to come across the line. They're going to take the lead of this race once again. Freelix back to P1, Budsy into P2, he's actually jumped up ahead of Boybegum and Gurr, who are still in P3 and P4, and those racing softs of Budsy, he's on an absolute charge right now.
Now, the strategy for Budsy here is very interesting to me. I do not know why from pole position... Clearly it's worked, and so I know nothing. But from pole position, generally, the master strategy would usually be to jump on the softs and just drive away from it.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I get the feeling that he might have said, look, if I can do decent laps on the medium tyre. I will save them a lot longer, and I'll have fresher tyres, and hopefully not as much fighting to do at the beginning of the race. Towards the end of the race. And in this case, he's only got one car ahead of him. So I guess in a way, it hasn't really worked out, because Felix, who was in P4, I believe, is currently leading the race. So far, it's really worked out for Felix, but the magic is sort of coming together here for Budsy, and whatever the decision was in his head to start on the medium seems to have been working out, but he's going to have to use a lot of those racing softs to get ahead of Felix, so this could end up backfiring towards the end of the race. 9 laps to go, and he'll have to make it all the way on those soft tyres. Oh, it looks up the inside, but no room there. Felix closes the door, and they'll go into the last corner.
Well, Felix has to do his best Adam Brewer impersonation here, I think, because it's all or nothing at this point. He's got a soft God charging Porsche behind him, and he's on the mediums and Supra. Now, as we see the Porsche pull to the inside, this should be very interesting, because the dynamic here is we've got a power car in the form of the Supra on the straight. The Porsche is going to really struggle to get past. He's nice and close here, but he's going to be forced to the outside, and he might be able to get by here, actually, on the outside on those soft tyres. Let's see what he can do. No, he doesn't go quite aggressive enough, and he holds behind. So that Supra of Felix is quite safe on that straight, because it's got that straight line speed advantage, and the track is just tight and twisty enough that Budsy cannot take advantage of those soft tyres enough to get by the Supra.
Correct, and he doesn't want to use too much of those tyres, but down the inside he goes. He's taken advantage of a little bit of a wide run there for Felix, but Felix rightly holds the position, will continue to stay on, but a little bit of a switcheroo action going on there. Budsy getting on the accelerator nice and early through the apex, but you're absolutely right there, Atom. It's a real trade-off for Budsy. He's got to save tyres, otherwise Felix can come back at him at the end of this race on those mediums, which will be much, much healthier at the end of this race. Oh, a little bit of a dive there on the outside again. But again, this is the kind of point that I'm making, and what you made as well. It's a very, very tricky place to overtake in the infield. The best place to do it is on the pit straight down into turn 1, but the ultimate speed of the Supra is preventing that from happening, even with the slipstream for the Porsche.
And you look at that through there as well, you can see that Porsche running right up to the back of the Supra through these corners, but it's just not fast enough to get by. And as I say that, the Porsche to the outside into the final corner. Here we go then. The Supra of Felix right behind him there, but now the tables are turned. So that Supra now has a slipstream, and with a straight line speed advantage, can Felix get back by again before the braking zone? Let's see.
Yeah, the only hope for Budsy right now is to hold that inside line, park it on the apex, and force Felix around the outside where he will not have as much grip. Depends on the overspeed though. Look at that Supra. He's absolutely going for it. Here we go.
Around the outside for the Supra on the medium tyres. Can he do it on the Porsche here? It looks like it's not going to be done. This is fantastic racing from both of these guys, and the championship protagonist in the form of Felix has to settle back into second place, and now it might be damage limitation against Boy Begun behind, who is also, I imagine, on the soft tyres.
Correct, that is absolutely right. So Boybegum will be next up in line, and Felix will get dropped here by the Porsche driver of Budsy, who's out, retakes the race lead. He'll get dropped by him through the infield section, might be able to gain a little bit back, but if Budsy continues to defend like he did that time round, then unfortunately Felix will not have the grip to get around him into that turn 1. By the way, as you said, the championship protagonist here, second in the championship at the moment. This is still a good result though for Felix. Even a P3 result here would be very, very good, because Bumcrack's down in P7. So as long as Felix can bring this car home, hopefully in the top 4, preferably in P2 where he is now, then he'll be bagging a bunch of points here and really starting to make a charge towards the top of the field for Div 3.
I imagine he can realistically hope for a podium here, because while he's got the fast charging McLaren of Boybegun behind on the soft tyres, the next biggest threat, the next two biggest threats, are both on the same tyre as Felix. That's Graham in P4 and Black Project RX7 in P5, and he's got a 4.5 second buffer back to them and no tyre disadvantage. But we'll have a look now at the onboard for Boybegum as he chases the Supra down the straight. Let's see what the McLaren can do against the mighty Toyota here. As Boybegum goes purple there, you see him with a 39.4 coming down the straight there, and Felix going defensive nice and early, holding the inside here into turn 1, but he goes deep. Is there going to be a switcheroo, as you say, into the second corner? It looks like the McLaren might have got it, but remember that acceleration is quite poor from the British mark, but not enough for Felix to regain the position, and now he finds himself behind two soft runners, and he may have to just consolidate this P3 here.
Correct. As I like to say, the switcheroo, that was actually a very nice move there from Boy Begum. Really made it work. And this is what I was saying about those medium tyres, and that's why it was key for Budsy to hold that inside line into turn one. The medium tyres do not have the grip to do that, what we just saw from Boy Begum. And Boy Begum's tyres, managed to hold on, and he saw it beautifully. Unfortunately for Freelix, just a little bit deep, so couldn't park it on the apex. If he had been able to, I don't think Boy Begum would have been able to get past at that point. He would have been stuck behind him for at least another lap. But now the real fight is going to be between Budsy and Boy Begum, only a second separating them on track.
Well, this has been very interesting actually, because Boy Begum is absolutely on fire. He set purple lap last time around with a 39.4, and he was just purple by nearly 2/10 through the second sector. So he's on an absolute charge right now, and fast charging at Budsy here. Budsy's got a rear view mirror full of McLaren and CP Motorsports now, and I think that CP car is going to pose a massive threat to Budsy's fight for the win.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on there, and I can confirm in terms of the tyre difference between the two, Budsy is actually slightly worse off, because Boy Begum, I think, managed to make that move happen slightly faster, and Budsy was stuck behind Freelix for a couple of laps. So I think that fighting that Budsy did, not being able to get past as soon as he did, hasn't helped him in terms of the tyre life. So Budsy, while he is on the softs now, and did just set a 39.8, will actually now be really struggling. Boy Begum's just done a 39.043. He's done two fastest laps in a row, and he's gone purple in sector one again. So on a charge, he's on a rocket right now.
Can anyone keep up with the CP car of Boy Begum? Purple sector for the third lap running here in pursuit of Budsy. The ISA Esports driver seems to have no answer for the raw pace of this McLaren. Where was this in qualifying? But Boy Begum was P2 by like half a second, if I recall correctly, and here he is outpacing Budsy by 0.8 a lap, like it's nothing.
That's right, the best lap so far this race for Budsy has been a 39.881, which is 0.8 slower than his qualifying pole of a 39 flat. Boy Begum's already beaten by, oh no, actually just about 0.03 of a second behind, 0.03 of a second behind, but is right on there on the 39 flat as well. So you're right, where has this pace come from? It's absolutely brilliant. Maybe, just maybe, the sunny conditions are slightly more favourable for that McLaren. I'm very split here, Adam, because I'm a huge McLaren fan, so I love to see what Boy Begum's doing, but also I've got my teammate up in P1 under pressure from it.
Yeah, it's a rock and a hard place sort of situation for you. The good news for you is you don't have to figure out who to cheer for just yet, because it looks like the move is not going to happen at least for another lap or so, as Boy Begum seems to have slowed it down a little bit for the second half of that lap, perhaps looking to conserve a bit more tyre here at Fuji for the remainder of the race. We're at 5 laps to go here. It's not far at all. So we've got two soft runners out the front. We've got Freelix in P3 with a 4.5 second buffer back to Graham, who is under a little bit of pressure from Black Project, but it looks like they might just be working together a little bit to try to catch that front group. Now, the Stranger is under pressure now from Bumcrack, who is on the softs after starting on the medium compound earlier in the race, having a mid-pack start. Now, don't forget that Mr. Bumcrack is your championship leader going into this round, and his nearest title rival, as he goes purple through Sector 1 there, is Freelix sitting up in P3. So this is going to be a huge result for the championship if it stays as it was. Now, the question is, does the Stranger let through Mr. Bumcrack here, who's on what I believe is... No, he's not on a superior tyre. I think the Stranger is also on the softs. Is that right?
That is absolutely spot on. The Stranger is not using any of those tyres, though. He's keeping the racing softs really, really healthy, which, at the end of the race like this, with only 4 laps to go, probably not the best idea to do, because Bumcrack's saying, right, throw all caution to the wind, let's get up as many places as I can, limit the damage in the championship to the maximum, and the Stranger right now is sitting there in his way, and he'll want to get that move done as soon as possible.
We've got to start thinking about fuel as well. I wonder if any of these guys have short fueled enough to not make it to the end. We'll have to see about that as we come towards the last lap. But coming up to the end of the 20th lap, our leader's now going across the line, and the McLaren is still right in the rear view of that Porsche, and he might be close enough to go for a move here. Will Boy Begum bail out of it this time? He does. He's not interested in a move this time around into the hairpin, but it looks like he's playing the waiting game here on Budsy. The pressure beginning to mount here.
That's right, it is all on Budsy right now. He needs to keep his cool, and he needs to keep those tyres cool as well. So, I mean, just as a quick update between these two, because this is the battle that is going to determine the winner of this race. Budsy is a little bit worse off on tyres at this stage, and he's also the one with the least fuel in the entire grid. So that is big, because that means that Budsy could be needing to short shift just a little bit more towards the end of this race. He should have enough fuel for this lap and the next 3, but you never really know at the end of the day. And but the point is, the Boybagum, better tyres, better fuel. But the gap there just extended a little bit, so a little bit of breathing room for Budsy just for a moment.
All right, let's go through the whole grid while we've got a little bit of time on our hands, and update on what everyone's tyre wear is looking like.
Excellent, and of course, please interrupt me if we do see a change in the battles that we've been keeping an eye on. So, as I said, with Budsy, he's got about 40% of those racing softs left, just about 26% of his fuel remaining. Boybagum, 50% of his racing soft tyres, and about 29% of fuel remaining. Freelix and P3, 50% of his racing mediums used, 27% of his fuel on board. Gurr, 27% of his fuel on board. These two being comparable in fuel usage all race. Those racing mediums looking very healthy at the moment, 60% of their wear. Black Project behind on the racing medium, putting an awful lot of pressure on Gurr at the moment. He's on 25% of his fuel, so he's nearly as bad off as Budsy is out the front, but those racing mediums looking pretty healthy at this stage. The Stranger on the racing soft, 50% of his tyres left. The front rear, my goodness. Clip that. The rear left, I should say, about 50% worse, so worse off than his front left. There we go, got it the right way round. But he's holding about 35% of his fuel, so doing very well saving. Mr. Brumkak has actually fallen off the back of him quite substantially. 40% of his racing soft tyres remaining, and about 26% of his fuel. Leaving Spill, very good on his racing softs currently, about 60% on each of them, 28% of his fuel on board. Sizzling Sausage, he's about 40% on his racing softs. That front left looking very, very bad. 30% of his fuel on board. Carbonboy racing mediums now. They've got 80% of their life left, 25% of his fuel on board as well. Killer Under Loose on the racing soft tyre, 50% on his tyres currently, and about 24% of his fuel. So he's also, one of those who's slightly worse off in terms of their fuel. Prua, who's down in P12 at the moment, about 70% of his racing mediums left. Don't know what's happened with Prua today. He's unfortunately dropped off the back of things, sadly. But 30% of his fuel remaining, and then Daz rounding out the field. Racing softs, fresh as anything, 40% of his fuel remaining.
Let's join back our leaders of this race this time around. Here we are up the top as we exit our APR Automotive Tire and Fuel Update graphic. Boybagum within half a second here of the Porsche, but not able to mount enough of a challenge here on Budsy. And Budsy looking to break the toe on the way down the straight here. Bit of movement on the straight. Not sure how many moves are allowed, but he's not being too aggressive with it, so I think he might be okay. Into turn one, and more of the same. We'll go for another lap with these guys.
We sure will. I think unless the car is a little bit closer than Boybagum was, that double move to break the slipstream would have been a bit cheekier, but probably fair game at this stage of the race. And Boybagum's just quite happy to let him do that. Didn't even bother following him in the slipstream.
No, that's
first
right.
time he tried to break it.
He was not interested in that toe whatsoever. No, thank you. I don't need that. I have a McLaren. Thank you very much.
Well, yeah.
On the way down straight there, but not enough to get by.
No, that's true. I think he was also saying, I don't want to use the tyre life at maximum speed down the straight on a hot track. I'll quite happily save the tyre life and not take the couple of extra kilometres an hour that slipstream will give me, which, to be fair, is going to be a sensible choice because Budsy is really running low on tyres now. He's running low on tyres. The fuel is getting a little bit low as well. This is the 23rd lap. There is one more lap after this, so Boybagum might be a little bit too conservative at this stage. We will see as things do round itself out. Budsy at this point is giving it absolutely everything. I think he's going to be on 0% fuel and 0 tyres across the line, no matter where he finishes, first or second.
Well, here we are approaching the start of the final lap. There's a second separating your two leaders here in the form of Budsy and Boybagum, representing ISA Esports and CP Motorsports respectively. It looks like Boybagum's not going to get to have a go here on the way down to turn one, but the straight line speed of that McLaren should get him a little bit closer. P3 at the moment, and rounding out the podium as it sits is Freelix with about 3.5 seconds of Graham behind in the Mercedes AMG, who's ahead of Black Project in the Ferrari for Blacklight Motorsports. The Stranger has settled into P6 there, and is probably looking to just bring that home at this stage. Mr. Bumcrack, your championship leader, is sitting down in P7, so not the worst result for him, but certainly not what he would have been hoping for, especially with Felix being an equal machinery and finding himself in P3 at the top. Levenspiel has been quite impressive tonight for Red Mist. I think he had a good charge through the field towards the late stages of the first stint. It was very good to see. Sizzling sausage for the Black Rose Racing outfit in the Nissan GDR. The GDR not seeming to be super competitive around here, possibly going for a suboptimal strategy as well. He finds himself in P9 ahead of Carbonboy, the second of the Obsession cars here in P10, with the bright orange wheels there to match the orange decal on the right hand side of the vehicle. Let's not call it the right left or the front rear, as we saw from CGK a little bit before.
Yes.
That'll go down in the Sector 1 history books, I think, mate. We'll make sure someone keeps that around.
Yes, the old front-rear tyre dilemma, and a quick update from the top, because Budsy was actually had enough to be keeping Bobigum out of the slipstream. He's done very well and put a 0.4 of a second on Budsy and kept him all the way at the behind of the lap. This is the final lap. Budsy has done it. He's absolutely done it. He's got basically 0 on board. Well done. That is a top drive.
It's a win for Budsy for ISA Esports as he crosses the line to take the checkered flag. Second for Boybigum in the CP Motorsports car. Could not come up with a response, and the podium is rounded out by Felix for Respawn Esports. Graham will beat Black Project RX-7 to the line here in P4, and 5, the Stranger for Doghouse Motorsport with a P6 finish there ahead of Mr. Bumcrack, the championship leader in P7 for Kraken Esports. Levenspiel for Red Mist Racing will come across the line to take P8 there for Red Mist Racing. Sizzling Sausage P9 in the GTR for Black Rose, across the line there in P9 after a long race for him. Carbonboy P10 looks to have run out of fuel there as well. The Lightning Motorsport car of Killer on the Loose will take P11 there, and Daz down towards the end of the last sector here in the Subaru BRZ for Deeds, coming across the line P12 after an early incident. Put pain to his race, I think, in the early stages, and Pruski down in P13 now off the back of these guys.
That's right, and of course, put your driver of the day for Div 3 in chat, folks. We are very interested to see who you're going to be voting for. I've got a dilemma again, Adam, but I will talk about that in just a sec. I do want to mention that Boybigum, I thought he was saving up the tyres and fuel for a real lunge at the end there to try and get ahead Budsy, who was really, really suffering, but unfortunately, Boybigum just didn't quite send it enough at the end of the race, and he was finished on much more tyres and much more fuel than Budsy did. So I think overall it's just a great drive from Budsy. He just done really, really well.
It was indeed. It was a fantastic race to watch from start to finish. Action up and down. We saw that mid-pack battle getting super intense. Let's have a look at our race results now for Division 3 this evening. So Budsy goes pole to win in the Porsche 911 for ISA Esports. What a drive he's had, and such great pace on display. Boybigum with that late charge, not able to do enough to get by the Porsche in his CP liveried McLaren, but claiming the fastest lap with a 39 flat, which is half a second clear of the next fastest time on the track. Felix in P3 for Respawn Esports. That's going to be really good for his championship hopes. Actually, Budsy as well might have just got himself put up to P3 in the championship with that win there. And pole position. Black Project behind Graham there in P4 and 5. Right on top of each other there as well. Not far between them either. The Stranger in the 4C for Doghouse in P6. Bumcrack in P7. Levenspiel P8. And we move to our last sheet here. Sizzling Sausage P9 for Black Rose Racing. Carbonboy P10. Killer on the Loose P11. Daz and Brewer rounding out the field. Now let's talk driver of the day. I think it's going to be between a couple of drivers. I'm going to look at, I think Boybigum was a really good driver into the late stages, or into the mid stages, sorry, of that second stint there, securing that fastest lap and blowing the other guys out of the water for one lap pace there. What do you think, CJ?
I think that's a very good call. I'm a little bit split with the old McLaren versus teammate dilemma, sadly. But with the fastest lap for Boy Begaman as well, just holding on to things, he qualified P2. So overall, a very, very good race. I don't think I will give it personally to Boy Begaman. I mean, again, I don't obviously want to avoid some bias here, but Budsy qualified P1, went on the medium strategy in first place, which, by the way, basically means that you're going to be behind in turn one, which he was, because Gurr got right ahead of him immediately. Then to have that brilliant fight back, so I think for me, my driver of the day will be Budsy. I can see some votes for Levenspiel as well, who had a big comeback drive, so another honourable mention there for sure. And the old driver of the day, Womble from Womble, so as expected.
It wouldn't be a Sector 1 stream without it, but yes, Levenspiel, I think, is a good nominee as well. Because he was the butt of an incident early on in the race, and with a great recovery, he found himself back in the top 8. Black Project flew under the radar a little bit as well. I remember him talking about his start on lap 1. He found himself in P11 after starting, I think, P9, but fought back to P5 there, so a great result for him as well. In P5 there, and like I say, flew under the radar a little bit, didn't get a lot of TV time, but just went about his business as he needed to. And I think your call on Budsy there as well. It was a fantastic drive, and he absolutely deserved the win for that. And I think it is worthy of a Driver of the Day nomination as well. The resilience to come back on those soft tyres, and you saw how close he was to Felix as well after the pit stops came through. Like 2 seconds behind Felix after running an entire stint on a subpar compound. Just great driving from Budsy, and absolute confidence in his strategy to make the race work for him, and he comes out with a win.
Yeah, but I have to agree. I mean, there was a lot of stellar performances all around the grid. At least 4 or even 5, maybe 6 really standout performances there, including the ones we've mentioned, Levenspiel, Black Project, Boy Begum, and Budsy. So very difficult driver of the day today. I mean, at the end of the day, if you get pole position and you win the race, that's a perfect weekend. Well, almost perfect, because he didn't get fastest lap of the race, I should say, so not quite perfect, 99% there, but yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it's a tough one, to be fair.
There was a few good performances up and down the field there, so very impressed with our drivers and great racing up and down, much entertainment for us, and looking forward to more of the same from Division 1. We will go to a quick intermission here and get into Div 1 shortly. Will you join us for Division 1, CGK?
Unfortunately, I have wanted to for a long, long time, and I've only done it once, I think, sadly. Unfortunately, I've got to get to bed for an early morning on Mondays. My Monday mornings are very early. So unfortunately, I cannot continue to join us, but I wish you, yourself, Atom, and Carbonboy a great Division 1 race. And Atom, of course, thank you for being the broadcaster today and jumping in for Lenosius. That is always much appreciated. And of course, folks, if you didn't know, Atom, because he is a Div 1 driver, has had to take a drop down for this one. So I think a round of applause for the commitment to Sector 1 and the broadcast team here for Atom. What a stellar job he's done today.
Well, it was much appreciated, and we love your work this evening, mate. Thank you so much for putting on the lobby for the guys. We'll go to an intermission now, and we will be back for more action from Division 1 here at Fuji. We'll see you guys in a bit. Welcome back, Sector 1 Sim Racing fans from Australia, New Zealand, and around the world. We are back from our intermission, and we are about to head into Division 1 for Group A here at Fuji Speedway. Now, these are the big guns here at Sector 1 Sim Racing. This is the peak, this is the pinnacle, and this is where everybody is trying to be here at Sector 1. Now, we've got quite a small field tonight, a few notable absences from the guys, but I'm sure it's going to be a remarkable night of racing nonetheless. Here is a quick look-see at the standings for the top division here at Sector 1. At the end of round 9, we've got G Schlol leading the way with a dominant performance across the entire season here. I think he's won every round this season, apart from the 2 Willow Springs sprint races, and has broken the record for most wins in a single season here at Sector 1. So a record-breaking season for Distinct Geesh in his first full season at Sector 1. Not too dissimilar to his teammate Distinct Andrew, who cemented himself into the history books at Sector 1 last season. Distinct coming and taking over the Sector 1 series here in Australia. But all we need now is Distinct Twitchy to turn up and win a season, and we'll have the Distinct trifecta. But in any case, representing Respawn Esports, Geesh at the top of the standings here, ahead of TX3 GDR, a usual championship protagonist, representing Hooncorp Esports this season, driving the Nissan. A 3-time champion here at Sector 1, so absolutely no slouch and a huge threat to Geesh, which is the reason why Geesh can never relax here at Sector 1. Captain Muffin in P3 for CP Motorsports. He's had a great season so far in that McLaren, really getting the most out of it with some awesome performances this season. Morgan Davey in P4 for Deeds Racing in the Subaru. He'll be looking to get himself up on the podium. He's not too many points behind Muffin there in P4, and further down, Wacky in P6. He was a Division 2 champion last season for Kraken Esports, and the son of Old Wakey, as some of you may know. Currently sits P6, and he's having a very, very good consistent season here in his first time in Division 1, so keep an eye out for the yellow banner on his car as he makes his way around the track. Diswood on his first season back at Sector 1 for Brocchio 5 Sim Racing in the Subaru, who got a win, I believe, at Willow Springs in the sprint round. Sits in P7 at the moment. Ricky Bobby in P8. After a great start to the season, he's fallen down a little bit further a little bit later on. Blind Man in P9 there for Dadson Racing Team. Lewis in P10 there for Hooncorp Esports. I think he's had a couple of missed rounds though, so when the drop rounds come in, they may adjust. Corey Hack in P11 for Red Mist Racing, and notable as well for Corey Hack that he has just today announced his retirement from Sector 1 at the end of this season. So he'll see out the season for Red Mist Racing, and then we'll be hanging up the helmet for the time being here at Sector 1. Hellraiser, P12 for Brocchio 5 Sim Racing in the Subaru. Scar, who I think has retired from the season already, and Faf, a newcomer for Black Rose and a replacement driver who joined midway through the season, driving the Nissan and making a start in Division 1 here. So we'll have a look as well at the Teams Championship here at Sector 1 as well. Respawn Esports leading the way, and you'll remember that from Geesh, who is leading Division 1 on points as well. And don't forget Frelix, who was the one of the podium finishers in Race 1 this evening. Hooncorp Esports, who we haven't seen represented so far tonight, but we will have, of course, TX3 GDR, and should have HC Lewis, although unsure at this stage whether he will be participating in this round or absent. And of course, important to note as well, we didn't see him on the team's championship, on the drivers' championship standings, but a newcomer to the series, John 27 TCT, has joined, and I believe was a replacement at Lightning Motorsport for Scar, and has made a very big impact in his first round, last round at Road Atlanta. Kraken Esports in P3. You'll remember the championship leader, Mr. Bumcrack, from the first race of the evening, and of course represented by Young Wakey in Division 1 here, champion of Division 2 last season, so he's certainly worth keeping an eye out for. The Dadson Racing team behind CP Motorsports, both I believe with representatives in the race tonight, in the form of Captain Muffin for CP Motorsports and Blind Man for Dadson Racing team in the Mercedes. Doghouse, no representatives in Division 1, but we saw the Stranger in the first race, finishing P6 to match his team's position in the standings at the moment. Deeds Racing, ISA Esports, and the Porsche, who took out the victory in Division 3 there just before. Obsession Motorsport, Blacklight Motorsport, Brocky 05 Sim Racing, Black Rose Lightning, and Red Mist Racing down the bottom there. So we are just about ready to rock and roll. We are in the lobby, ready to go. And I am joined by race director this evening, Carbonboy, who participated in the first race of the evening, as some of you may know, for Obsession Motorsport. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing relatively well, all things considered. I'm nursing two things at the moment. One is a cold that has been hanging around all week, which has been a whole lot of fun. And the second thing I'm nursing after that race is a nice little snifter of scotch, because I need a good strong drink after that one.
That was a tough one up and down, and it looked like a hectic battle for you. But we may get into that more later on. How are these guys doing, and how have the practice starts been tonight for Division 1?
The practice starts have been, I guess, around about the usual Div 1 standard. Take that as you will. It has been brought to my attention that I had made a slight slip up in the weather settings, so I have just corrected that, and all the drivers are ticked in, and we are ready to rock and roll.
All right, what say we get qualifying underway?
I am all for that.
All right, so a quick reminder before we jump to the track for this. Here is your Fuji Speedway track map. 4.5 kilometers, 16 corners, and a massively long straight where the Super will shine, and possibly others as well. Again, we've got the soft and medium tyres, both mandatory, I believe, for this round. Is that correct?
Negative. There is no mandatory tyre for this round due to the weather forecast.
So a forecast for rain in the late stages of the race here means that there is no mandatory tyre for the Division 1 boys, so we will be looking at any kind of strategy up and down. Do you think there's a good chance of rain, or do you think it's looking fairly slim?
Well, I'm guaranteed to be wrong no matter which way I go, to be honest, because of GT7 doing GT7 things. I hope there will be rain, but I'm not sure if the guys out on track share that sentiment entirely. I'm pretty sure they would prefer it to just maybe get a little bit cloudy, and that's about it.
It'll be interesting to see if the guys opt to use a medium tyre or not, but we'll see how that goes as we go on. So we are about to jump to track and check out what's going on for qualifying, so let's have a look-see at our drivers. So here we are on the track, 10 minutes qualifying. Ricky Bobby leads the way at the moment. First out of the pits for Obsession Motorsport. We've seen two representatives, and that's your teammate, of course, Carbonboy.
Yes, it is indeed. Always good to see him out on track in front, even if it is only the outlap of qualifying. It's always good to see it.
It's amazing. It feels like the Obsession cars are everywhere. I saw two of them in the last race, and every time I commentate with you on the Group B rounds, you've got a teammate in there in the form of Lenosis as well.
Yeah, it's, you know, we're like a fungus, but in a good way.
Can it be in a good way? I'm sure there is. There's healing properties of funguses somewhere. Anyway, Ricky Bobby leads at the moment and is about to start his first representative lap. We've got VTX Blindman GT for Dadson Racing team there, and John 27TCT in his second round of the season for Lightning Motorsport and the Toyota Supra. He's followed closely by Young Wakey in the championship winning Kraken Esports Supra. There you see the yellow banner over the top of the car, and he'll have to be made way for by John ahead of him. But that bright yellow banner, that's that mark of a Sector 1 Division champion. So there is Young Wakey making his way round 100R. Captain Muffin in the CP Motorsports McLaren. As we said before, he is third in the championship at the moment and is having a fantastic season everywhere he goes. He seems to pull results no matter which track it's at. Let's see if we can get more of the same from him here at Fuji. Diswood in the Brocchio 5 Sim Racing BRZ. A fan favourite, the driver, Diswood, of course, making his return to Sector 1 for this season for Brocchio 5 Sim Racing under the 6-time champion Rocky, or the Cyborg as he is better known. Fat in the Black Rose car, a newer driver to the Sector 1 front line here in Division 1, but making a good impact early on and looking fairly competitive. We've got Corey Hack, who announced his retirement from Sector 1 today in P8 for Red Mist Racing, and your championship leader, Distinct Geesh, driving for Respawn Esports there in the Supra on his first representative lap. And of course, don't forget TX3 GDR, his main championship rival there in P10 for Hooncorp Esports. So, Young Wakey sets the provisional pole lap. Let's have a look at Geesh now as he comes across the line on board with the Respawn car. Does he set provisional pole early? It's a 38 and it's a half-second clear of Young Wakey. Let's see what GDR can do. GDR goes third, so not enough to unseat Wakey. He's got 3/10 to find. 38.8 currently on the board. Do you know, Carbonboy, what sort of time we can expect to see for pole here?
Well, I've had Geesh in a practice lobby this afternoon, and he was, well, he's done a 38 flat first flyer, so he's already surpassed my expectations by a good couple of tenths. And that's first flyer, so I honestly didn't expect to see anyone into the 37s, but I'm sitting here a little bit stunned right now, realizing that it is a distinct, pun intended, possibility.
That was a fantastic pun, and I hope you do it again one day. The wind does appear to be quite optimal for the track. You're looking at a very big tailwind and purple sector there for GDR as well. This is important. So if you look at the track map up in the top right, you can see that arrow pointing the same direction as the home straight, the longest straight on the track. Now that is your optimal wind here, because that means you've got a tailwind all the way down that straight, you get great speed, and then you get a headwind through 100R, so your downforce picks up, and then you get a headwind into the braking zone for the chicane as well, which means you can brake later. So it's the fastest wind for the track that's currently running around the circuit, so we can expect to see the fastest laps put down possible today. Diswood drops himself into P3 there. That's a great lap from him. Will he be unseated by GDR here? Let's see. GDR goes purple. He unseats Geesh with a 37.7. And Geesh has gone into the pits for a fresh set of tyres. He's going to have to come back with a response. That is a fantastic lap from the championship protagonist, TX3 GDR.
Apologies to the viewers at home if you just heard a very loud thump. That was the sound of my jaw hitting the floor. Holy...
Now, the amazing thing about that is it was not slipstream assisted. It's important to note that that GDR does not have the same strength in a straight line as the Toyota Supra. So he's really nailed down the sectors there. And I think that GDR had more time to find, because we saw him get a little bit sideways, I think, coming out of the last corner, I think it was. It was one of the corners in the last sector. So there's more time for GDR to find here. And I think he can do it. That wind is picking up as well, so that straight line speed is going to be quicker. He's lost 3/10 this lap, so he's probably going to abort this one and head into the pits for a fresh set of tyres. Geesh is going to be looking to challenge that time and steal the pole position, but realistically, even if he stays where it is, it's really not going to matter, because we know that GDR is very good off the line and will jump the Supra down to turn 1 no matter what Geesh does.
Yeah, the GDR is an absolute animal off the line. Actually, most of the cars in this field are an absolute animal off the line when you compare it to the Supra.
Yeah, the Supra's none too flash. There goes Woody into the pits as well, and GDR coming in for a fresh set. Here comes Geesh to finish his first outlap. Let's jump on board with our championship leader. We'll go cockpit view with this guy. Here you go, looking at the steering wheel there for the Toyota Supra. With all the details on it and plenty of buttons, which I'm sure Geesh is paying no attention to. Down the front straight we go. He puts it in 6th gear before the line, and he'll run down to turn number 1 here. He's got a couple of cars coming out of the pits in front of him. He'll have to hope that he goes around those guys through the first corner. Corey Hack gets out of the way nicely there. A little bit deep of the apex there. He may have made that. It's hard to tell from this viewpoint. A good exit there. We'll run down to turn number 2 now. The left-hander, a little bit of a sharp braking input, and then throw it into the corner. Run it all the way out. Get your 4 wheels outside the white line there. Run to the inside of 100R. Lift off the gas down to 3rd gear and back up to 4th for the power again. Nip that apex on the right-hand side, and then hard on the brakes for the left-hander here. Swing it in. Floor it in 2nd gear all the way out to the exit curb on the outside. 4 wheels over the white line. Once again here from Geese. This is looking like a good lap so far. He was purple through Sector 1. Will we be purple through Sector 2 as we head under the Dunlop sign? Let's see. He's down on his best time by 18 thousandths of a second. He goes through the chicane here. Right-hander, left-hander, and then another right. Floor it in 2nd gear to the outside here. Puts it in 3rd momentarily, down to 2nd gear again. Through the right-hander. Into the difficult S's now. This is a part of the track that people either love or hate, and it looks like Geesh might have thrown this lap away there as well. He's got a little bit sideways on the exit there of the first S. Runs to the outside there again. He's got the Brocky 05 Sim Racing car in front of him of, I think that's Diswood. Pulls into the apex on the inside on the last corner there. Runs it all the way to the outside onto the Astro. I don't know if this lap will be enough. I think GDR might hold on to provisional pole for a bit longer. John 27 TCT takes P7 provisionally.
Yeah, I was riding on board with him for the last couple of parts of that sector. His previous best lap was a 142 flat, which, yeah, having a look through the field, it was a big surprise for me to see him right at the very back. So that's why I rode on board and saw he's just gone purple through the first sector. So maybe he's saving his best for last here.
We'll have to see what he can do here, but don't forget that purple sector is on a GDR, which does not have the same straight line speed advantage of the Supra, and that first sector is realistically just 1 corner. But we'll keep an eye on it and see what he can do down to the end of the 2nd sector here. On board with John 27 TCT, 2nd race of the season in Sector 1 for Lightning Motorsport, making a big impact early on. He's on an improved lap. He's got 2 tenths to the good on his best. He might be enough to jump up to P5 here, but we'll have to see. Look further up here now. On to the final laps. The guys coming across the line. Captain Muffin will be the first to do it. He's currently P3. Will he improve? No improvement. He will stay provisionally P3 at the best. And now we've got, I think, the GDR of the Black Rose car coming in under Faf there. Will he improve? He's P10 at the moment. No improvement there. The Obsession car will come across the line, followed by the Kraken Esports car. Ricky Bobby sets a better time. Young Wakey improves as well. P4 there. John 27 TCT goes to P6. Geesh across the line. Geesh will take provisional pole position. Does GDR have an answer for him? He's coming to the line now. On board with GDR. He's got 1 chance here to unseat Geesh once again and take pole position and get that extra point. Across the line he comes. It's no improvement for GDR, and Hoomcorp will only be P2 on the front row there behind Geesh. Now those guys cut it fine all the way to the end of the session there, and what a way to round it out there for Geesh. Clutching it at the death, and we'll have a look at the gap for you guys in just a moment.
Wow. But keep in mind, Geesh may have pole position. I'm willing to put money on the fact GDR will be back in first by the end of turn 1.
I think you're right there. So let's have a look here now at the results. Geesh P1 with a 37.721 and but 67 thousandths behind GDR for Hoomcorp in the GTR Nismo GT3. Captain Muffin in P3, so they are in championship order right now. P1, 2 and 3 here up the top there, and Young Wakey there in P4 ahead of Diswood, John 27 TCT in his 2nd race this season. Corey Hack and Ricky Bobby there. Blind Man and Faf rounding out the top 10 there. So notable absences tonight is Morgan from Deeds Racing, currently out of this round. He's sitting P4 in the championship at the moment, so that's going to be a huge loss to him, unfortunately. But Thankfully, I think this might be one of the BRZ's weaker rounds, although Diswood managing to put it up in P5 there for Brocchio 5 Sim Racing. What are your thoughts on the qualifying session, Carbonboy?
You can't forget to include yourself as a noticeable absence, although, in a sense, you're not really absent, you're just not on the track.
President accounted for, just not in the lobby.
Yes. And again, thank you for taking a drop round to stream this round. Much appreciated.
That's all right. That's all right. It is my pleasure. I'm happy to be here. You know, it's a huge privilege to commentate on Group A.
You get to commentate on your own division that you race against week in, week out. So
you know, I wish I could commentate and race at the same time. It would be great. But unfortunately, we live in a world of reality here.
yes.
But that is how our grid's going to line up. We will go to the grid very shortly here at Fuji Speedway. But what a qualifying session it was at the death. Geesh, there. We'll have one more look now at our...
Sorry, the button has been pressed.
The button has been pressed. All
yes.
right. So we are about to go to track. Here's your Division 1 standings as they sit. Geesh, GDR and Captain Muffin, your protagonists. Keep an eye out for them in the race this evening. Okay, we go to track. And they're off and running. We've just about missed the start there, and it's a great start from GDR, and up to P1 he goes, well clear of the Supra there of Geesh. And down to T1 they will barrel. Muffin thinking about a move, and there's a huge move there from, I think it was the Kraken Esports Supra into the back of Muffin, and that has pushed your championship leader Geesh off the track, and he has rejoined down in P7. Unbelievable scenes at the start of this race, and GDR can't believe his eyes.
He would be thanking his lucky stars right about now. And can't believe his luck.
That is absolutely huge for this championship. GDR might be able to score massive points from this one, but it's going to be very interesting to see what Geesh can do from P7 here. I think it was the Kraken Esports car of Young Wakey there that caused that incident, but we'll have a look on board later and see what happened. I think also Captain Muffin has fallen way back down the field here. He's going to go down the inside of Corey Hack and down the inside of Faff at the same time. 2 for 1 potentially. Not quite for Captain Muffin in the CP car. But he's looking
Captain
racing
Muffin.
to the outside of the Lightning Motorsports car now goes Geesh.
Captain Muffin had a little bit of an incident at that T1. I wasn't quite sure what caused it, but he did end up facing about 90 degrees in the wrong direction.
Does a 4 wide. The Black Rose car is off the track and into the fence. Gets pit maneuvered by someone there, surely. Or he might have just got loose on the AstroTurf on the outside. Geesh up to P6 now. So we're going to have a look at a replay of that start. Actually, I think we're going to have a look at the racing down to turn 1. We've got a close battle between, I think it's Young Wakey and Ricky Bobby here. Young Wakey looking to the outside of the Obsession Motorsport car as they head to turn 1. Mercedes of Blind Man just ahead there. And there's that yellow banner of Young Wakey, the Division 2 championship winner from last season. Very, very close on the back of the Obsession car here. Ricky Bobby having the pressure piled on in the early stages.
I'm not sure whether Young Wakey's going to be applying the pressure or not, or just keeping in touch with Ricky Bobby, because I did see a little bit of bump drafting going on down that straight. So I can't help but wonder if Young Wakey's just wants to work together with Ricky Bobby and try and catch up to Blind Man up in P3 at the moment, try and get them back in the podium fight. Because they've got quite a...
At the replay of the start there, and it was not Young Wakey who caused the incident, it was VTX Blind Man GT for Dadson Racing, who finds himself in P3 remarkably. He was at the center of that incident. We didn't actually see if he was perhaps hit from behind by someone else, but he came in very fast into the braking zone, and it was him that made contact with Captain Muffin and set off that chain reaction that ended up with so many cars further down the order. So here's Distinct Geesh in P6. Now he's got that battle between the two in front of him going on, and he might be able to profit very quickly here.
Also seem to be seeing a little bit of teamwork between Captain Muffin and John, with Captain Muffin doing a little bit of bump drafting down the straight, taking advantage of the Supra's straight line pace.
Good. Muffin's always been a very clever racer, making the most of the advantages he sees around them. We've just seen Jeesh cross the line to set the fastest lap of the race so far with a 37.951. Now, it's worth noting that these guys are probably all on the soft tyre, but there is a possibility that some might be on the medium. Do you know if that's the case, Carbonboy?
I can only see one driver who is running the medium compound. So someone's going against the grain here.
Who's that?
Oh, do I really tell you? Yeah, okay. It is FAF747, and he unfortunately finds himself down in P10 after that second lap incident coming through the last left-hander of the circuit.
Yes, so he was turned around in the S's there, back there, and now he's got a long race ahead of him. They're already on lap 3 though. The laps go by very quickly here.
They do indeed.
Now we'll jump on board with Distinct Jeesh for the home straight here. He's now got a train of 3 cars in front of him, so he's going to be looking to make a move on someone here. He's deep in the slipstream of Young Wakey, who is also being assisted by Ricky Bobby. There's more tow here than a Roman sandal on the main straight of Fuji Speedway as they head down 3 Supras in a line. Jeesh pulls to the inside, but he's probably going to lose out a little bit here as Young Wakey still has the benefit of the slipstream from the Obsession Motorsport car in front of him. But it looks like, the Obsession Motorsport car nearly into the back of the Datsun car. And Jeesh is going to take advantage. He's going to get 2 for 1 here. He gets Young Wakey on the way in, and the Obsession car has to bail out of the corner and take evasive action. And it looks like Jeesh up to P4 now.
He's certainly making hay while the sun shines here at Fuji.
Jump on board now as he goes in pursuit of Blind Man GT, who was at the centre of that incident on the first lap that we saw. We'll have to see. We'll let the stewards deal with that in due course, but for now he's in P3, followed by Jeesh in the Respawn Esports car. Into the chicane we go. Young Wakey getting very close in behind. You can see on the delta on the left-hand side, just a tenth between them there, and then it opens out as they come out of the corner. Now this home straight should be very interesting here as we see the straight line speed of the Supra versus the Mercedes.
I was just keeping an eye on Woody up in P2 at the moment. He's dropped back a little bit behind GDR. He's got 3.5 seconds to Blind Man at the moment, but he is going to have to serve a half-second penalty on this straight. Just
that hurts. Those half seconds here are absolutely deadly. So he has served it now, has he?
He has indeed.
Look at this, the power of the Supra against the Mercedes. Blind Man can do nothing against the might of the Respawn car. Jeesh cuts back across on the way into the braking zone. No response from the Datsun car. Young Wakey thinking about a move up the inside as well. Not holding back early on in the race here. The guys run all the way to the exit curb there. Captain Muffin's made a bit of a recovery here. I believe he was way off the back in the early stages. Now sitting in P7. Recovery drive is on. Him and Jeesh both making a return up through the field here in Division 1.
I don't want to be the bearer of bad news for Blind Man, but one Supra's got past, and he now has another pair of them right on his rear bumper in the form of Young Wakey and Ricky Bobby.
Guys are nose to tail right now. That Mercedes is going to get absolutely eaten up down the straight, and Muffin is coming to join the party as well. The gap between Jeesh and Diswood is currently 2 seconds. We'll keep an eye on that as the race goes on. Then there's another 6 seconds to GTR out the front. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So given that these guys are allowed to run any tyre they want, I predict that the best strategy will be to run softs to about the halfway point, put on another set, and hope that it rains in the late stages once you've used a fair bit of that tyre's life. Because you wouldn't want someone starting on the medium, such as Bath, for example, to run an extra couple of laps on the medium stint and end up running into the rain early on well, in the late stages of the race, but not having pitted yet, because that would make up a huge advantage for the Black Rose driver.
Young Wakey's just dropped a couple of positions there. He picked up a half-second penalty as well, and that's let both Ricky Bobby and Captain Muffin on through to get on with overtaking Blind Man, who seems to be struggling here a little bit.
I think that Mercedes is a little bit down on pace on these guys. It's not quite as quick as its newer counterpart, the 2020 version of the AMG around here, so it's going to be lacking a little bit in straight line and potentially in cornering as well. Traction, however, very strong for that Mercedes, so they'll be very good through the later stages of the lap for sure. But let's see what Ricky Bobby can do here as they head towards the chicane. Will he dive to the inside? He's not thinking about a move, but Muffin is. Muffin to the inside of the Obsession car. He's got to be careful of the Dadson car in front of him. A little bit of contact on the apex, and Muffin backs out of it, allowing Ricky Bobby to reclaim the position. P5 remains in possession of Ricky Bobby as they head into the S's for the 6th time.
Don't count young Wakey out of this. He's back to join the party. This is a great little battle pack, this one.
Very strong, a lot of very aggressive racing here. Young Wakey, will he look for a move? No, he's very close to Muffin though. He's going to look to the inside. Maybe Muffin gives him a little bit of extra room there on the inside, and that might compromise the McLaren on the way out here. Let's have a look. Young Wakey on the straight, right in the slipstream of Muffin. Will he push him along, or will he go for the move? Let's see. As they head down, and Corey Hacker's not too far away from this one as well, just outside of slipstream range. Into turn 1 we will go. To the inside, not quite able to make it happen. Muffin looking to the outside potentially of the Obsession car. That Mercedes is going to hold on to it, I think. No, the Obsession car to the outside now. He's going to have the outside line running into the left-hander here. And the Mercedes is going to reclaim it, I think. Yep. As they head through towards 100R. And now Muffin is compromised as Young Wakey to the outside of that corner, looking for an opportunity as well. Into the left. Very defensive from the Dadson car.
Just while you've been watching that, I've been paying attention to Woody and Jeesh. Jeesh is now back up into P2 after having
on a replay what happened here. Not quite. It got him into turn 1, I would assume.
Yep, he had a fantastic slipstream going down the straight, being super against the BRZ. Not Morgan. Woody did go take the defensive line into turn 1, but slightly outbraked himself running deep, and that left the door wide open for Jeesh to just tuck in on behind and sail on past on the exit.
Right, so Jeesh will now go in pursuit of GDR. He's got a lot of time to make up if he wants to catch the Hooncorp driver. We're on board now with Young Wakey and P7, who's got a front row seat to the action of the battle pack here in the mid pack. Captain Muffin, Blind Man, and the Obsession car of Ricky Bobby up in front there as the McLaren looks for a move on the Mercedes here. The overspeed of the McLaren seeming to be enough on that Mercedes, even with the benefit of the slipstream from the Supra in front. Will the McLaren go down the inside? He will, but he's going to go deep of the apex, gets in the way of the Obsession car, and they're both going to lose out here to Young Wakey as well. So the Mercedes reclaims P4, and it's back to square one for these guys. And at this point now, Muffin's going to be dealing with the latency of Corey Hack in front of him, of course. You can see that movement from side to side makes him very, very difficult to race as they head round the 100R corner into Coca-Cola. Up the inside, can Muffin get it done here? And sideways for Young Wakey on exit, losing the power. Losing it on the power, rather, as they headed through the exit of Coca-Cola to the chicane now. The Obsession Motorsport not able to get the better of the Dadson car there, and Muffin now getting very close to Corey Hack, and the Mercedes has lost it on the way out there and is now being attacked by Corey Hack as well.
And Muffin's coming in to join the party too. Sends it down the inside. Thank you very much, he says.
It's the Mercedes, and he might get Corey Hack in the same corner as well. Look at that. Great driving from the Muffin man around the outside of the Red Mist car. Got to be careful doing that. There's a lot of movement going on there, but it looks like he's going to get the better of it. No slipstream assistance from Ricky Bobby down the straight, though. Now that ought to be interesting.
This turn 1 is going to be very, very interesting.
Let's jump on board with Blind Man. He's got a front row seat to the action here. To the outside for Corey Hack. Will he go for it very early on the brakes there? Or was it late for Blind Man? Again, hits Muffin into the braking zone of turn 1 for the second time this race. But a little bit of a bump on exit gives Muffin all the acceleration he needs to get away. Into the left-hander.
That was quite deep under brakes from Blind Man. I held my breath as he nearly went into the back of Corey Hack on his way through.
It looked like early braking from Corey, but in hindsight, it must have been a late brake from Blind Man because he nearly took out Muffin as well. Bit of a missile this race, the Dadson car. But holding P6 for now. John 27 TCT is one that's been interesting to watch and hasn't really made a huge impact in this race. He is now on the back of this battle pack, but he's got a half-second penalty to serve, which is going to put him on the back foot for the next lap.
Now, do you think we should try and sneak in a tyre and fuel update here?
I think lap 9, I think now is a good time.
Rightio, we've got GDR out in front. He is on just over 30% fuel left in the tank, and that front left tyre is down to about 5%. There's not a lot of life left in it, whereas that rear tyre is at about 50%. Geesh has actually slightly about 1 or 2% less fuel than GDR, but his tyres are looking much healthier. He's got about 20% left on that front left, about 30% on the rear. Diswood, who's come into the pits, so I'll get him while I can, has about 30% in the tank. He's pitted with about 10% left on the front, 50% on the rear. Ricky Bobby has about 35% fuel, about 25% left on both front and rear left-hand side tyres. Captain Muffin is a little bit lower for fuel, just under 30%. He's got about 50% on his front left tyre, but only about 25% on his rear left. Corey Hack's about the same for fuel, about 30%. About 50% wear on both his left-hand side tyres. Blind Man is suffering, unfortunately. He's got just under a quarter of a tank left, absolutely nothing left on that front left tyre, and about 20% on the rear as he's overtaken by John, who has about 30% fuel left in the tank, and he's looking at about 45% left on both of his left-hand side tyres. Young Wacky has bang on quarter of a tank left, about 10% on his front left, maybe 25% on the rear left. Faf on the racing mediums has about 35% fuel left in the tank with about 50% on the front left. And he's only worn out about 30% on the rear left as he's... Oh, very aggressive manoeuvre. Very aggressive manoeuvre there from Diswood, who's come out of the pits on a fresh set of racing softs. And that's it for our tyre and fuel update, brought to you by APR Automotive.
How good from the guys. Yeah, very, very deep there from Diswood on the inside of Faf into the hairpin there. So I'm sure that will get looked at by the stewards pending a report. But
Blind Man into the pits, which should be quite a smart decision.
Now,
Lap 10, I would have thought the Div 1 guys might be able to do more than 9 or 10 laps before killing their tyres, but I've been wrong many, many times, and this will not be the last time.
I'll tell you what's interesting. The gap between GTR and Geesh has come down significantly. I don't know why or when, but it was over 6 seconds to from GDR to Diswood before he pitted. Yet now Geesh is within 5 seconds. So that time is coming down with a vengeance.
I can offer you some insights into that. The gap last time I looked a few laps ago was about just under 7 seconds. It's now down to bang on 4, and that would be because GDR has absolutely nothing left on that front left tyre.
Right. Time to come into the pits, good sir. Although I imagine he's probably going to stick it out for one more lap, just in case there's no rain later on. So he's probably going to go for one more.
He's definitely going past the pits this time round.
Geesh,
however,
on
is
an undercut.
pulling
Now
in.
this is interesting because you would think at the end of the 11th lap you'd be looking at running a 12th lap and cutting the race in half on this one stop. But Geesh, on the other hand, deciding he would rather undercut GDR and give himself the disadvantage late on in the second stint. Now, given his tyre wear in that first stint and how it was better than GDR's, you can kind of back yourself to do that. But what if GDR improves his tyre wear over this second stint? Might be enough to keep that pace really, really quick in the late stages. So Geesh is going to be careful here. He's going to have to hope that he comes out ahead of GDR. I think a 4-second deficit is a bit too much to overcome with a pit stop. But we'll see what happens when GDR comes out of the pits in a lap's time.
And Geesh has completely brimmed the tank of fuel. As he's going to go... No, he's not going to go side by side with Diswood through turn 1. Thought better of it, backed out of it.
Oh wow, so he's come out behind Diswood. Now that is
Yes.
interesting. Because he was ahead of Diswood earlier.
From memory, Woody pitted
pitted from behind
slightly earlier.
Yeah, Woody pitted from behind him, though, which is
He did not fully fuel his tank though.
so Woody's planning a 2-stop. That makes sense. That explains why there's a bit of a deficit there.
I'm just having a look. Who else is in desperate need of tyres? GDR is coming in right as I speak.
Imagine Muffin will do the same as he comes onto the main straight ahead of Ricky Bobby.
You are correct, good sir.
GDR appears to be very off pace on these dead tyres at this point, and Muffin into the wall on pit entry. Now let's have a look with Geesh. He's probably going to be behind a whole bunch of stoppers here at the end of lap 12, being the halfway point in the race, of course. GDR now refueling. Will be coming out of the pits very, very shortly. Let's jump on board with Geesh and see if we can spot where these guys are as they come on out. GDR falling to 86%. He is on pit exit now. Will it be enough to stay ahead of Geesh? It looks like it will be. There he is in the distance there. He's ahead of both Diswood and Geesh. Now Geesh has compromised himself a little bit here because he's now on a slightly more worn tyre than GDR. And still behind him.
I can't see...
By Woody too.
I can't see... I mean, again, I've been wrong many times before, but I can't see GDR making it to the end of the race with that fuel load.
Well, what did he come in with in the tank?
Actually, no, he came in with about 12%. And if he's filled to 87...
An extra 2%.
Okay, alright, I retract my previous statement. It is possible.
Yeah, certainly possible. He may have to compromise his fuel a little bit though, but the gap coming down is going to be very interesting here. Now, the interesting one here is John27TCT has just had an incident. I don't think he's pitted yet, and I'm going to guess that incident is due to the fact that his tyres are, I'll use it again, about as useful as a protective case for a Nokia phone. Now that they're all worn out and the gap to GDR is coming down, will he hold up GDR? I don't think so. I think he's going to get onto the straight and dive straight into the pits here with those tyres as they are. Let's have a look at what happened to John. On the exit there of the chicane, just got a little bit sideways, ended up on the grass and took a long time to get back on the track. And into the pits he will come.
I mean, the tyres are definitely past their best before date, but not quite the use by.
So, Geesh, the move on Diswood takes P2. Not a lot that Woody can do there because that straight line speed disadvantage is very, very pronounced. So, fourth to just let the car through and try to latch onto the back of him here. That BRZ should be fairly quick through the next sequence of corners and in the late stages of the lap, but he's going to have to work hard if he wants to keep up with the championship leader here.
Someone who's worth keeping an eye on is Faf, who's currently sitting in P4. Now, he's on the medium tyres and has not pit yet, so it's not an outright fourth position. But we're on lap 14 now, and he's not quite yet hit the fuel light and still has a fair amount of life left in his left-hand side tyres, so...
Well, I know the forecast for the race is rain late. So probably in, 5 or 6 laps time. But if it rained now, that would be perfect for Fat. Because everyone would be forced to dive back into it. He's probably on his last legs of fuel here, because everyone else was just about out, and he's probably now down to his last little dregs in the tank. So if it rained now, everyone was forced to pit, he would net quite a few positions.
He literally hit the fuel light the moment you said dregs in the tank.
I'm a psychic of some kind.
So he doesn't appear to be pitting this lap. He's going for one more, and he's got the fuel to do it.
Yeah, I'd say he'd get one more lap out of that fuel with just shy of 10%. Fuel light, if you didn't know, comes on with 10% fuel remaining, so he's got enough probably for one more lap. There goes Muffin, driving off ahead of the Black Rose car. Now, we don't have a weather display graphic for the broadcast today, but I can tell you that the last couple of slots on the custom weather forecast are for light rain. So there is a chance of rain late in the stage. Now, we do know, of course, that Gran Turismo has a tendency to not actually cause it to rain with light settings like that. So it remains to be seen whether it will be an entirely dry race, and it's entirely possible that it will rain just enough that you need those wet tyres, but too late for anyone to actually consider pitting. So it might throw a real spanner in the works in the late stage of this race, or it might be dry for the entire race from start to finish. So it will remain to be seen so far. Now the gap at the front, just shy of 4 seconds, GDR to Jish. That gap seems to have stagnated a little bit for now. But what a comeback of drive it's been from Jish. Turned around nearly at the first corner of the first lap, and down the lower parts of the standings to fight himself all the way back up to second on track, on merit. A great drive so far.
Certainly agree with that. That's picking up 5 positions after losing 5 positions. That's certainly nothing to sneeze at there.
Something we've come to expect from our championship leader. He's a resilient guy, and driving very well. There's Faf into the pits from P6 in the GDR with 3% fuel remaining. Let's see if he puts the softs on from here. Now, we're getting to the point now where the rain might start becoming apparent. The track is getting fairly dark, although the clouds are not very obvious as to whether it is going to rain or not. And we've got no weather radar live on our broadcast either, so we can't actually see if it's coming or not. All we can do is keep an eye out for the windshield wipers on the drivers' cars and see if they are going. That gap continuing to sit as it is.
Oh, John has just completely missed his braking marker for turn 1 and ended up in the sand trap. That's not gone well for him.
Look. Oh, wow. Oh, wow, way deep. Lucky not to hit the barriers at the end of that. So, bit of a missed braking point there. It looked like he was trying to get some heat in the tyres in the late part of the straight there. Not able to get the car stopped in the end. Still remains ahead of Faf though, who's got a 3-second penalty for crossing the pit lane lines. Whether that's at entry or exit will remain to be seen. This gap at the front does not want to change. So Jish is not able to pull any time out of GDR. Now, it'll be interesting to see if that changes as the race goes on in the tyre where it becomes apparent once again. But GDR doing a great job now of holding on to that first position. Let's jump on board with the race leader and see what a lap of the track looks like from his perspective. We're here through 100R at the Nissan GDR at the Coca-Cola corner. Run it all the way to the exit curve on the outside. There you go, 4 wheels over the white line. And the semi back straight down towards the chicane at the end. Heavy braking zone under the Dunlop sign. That's where you're going to hit the anchors. Straight line braking. Purple sector there for the Nissan as well. And we'll head through the chicane now and into the S's. So this is where the GDR will be quite strong through here. It's got very nice turn in on the front end. And through the right-hander there, cruising through. Very nice throttle application from TX3 GDR. 3-time Sector 1 Division 1 champion here and strutting his stuff at Fuji Speedway and continuing to pull a gap actually on Jeesh as well. That gap's extended now to over 4 seconds. This has been a great lap from GDR as he exits onto the main straight here, and we'll see if that is a improvement on Jeesh's fastest lap time that he set first stint. Here we go, across the line. GDR to claim the fastest lap point. Not quite. It's an improvement on his best lap, but he's a 10th off GDR off Jeesh, so not quite able to do it this time around.
That gap is just bouncing up and down a couple of tenths here and there around the 4-second mark. I must admit I'm a little surprised. I thought it would have been coming down a little bit more, but
Something's really changed in this second stint, and it's for the benefit of GDR, whatever it is. He's having a great drive this second stint, managing to keep that gap prominent where he is. We're looking now at Wakey, young Wakey, that is on Corey Hack now in the first corner, lap number 18 here at Fuji Speedway. Now this will be a hard overtake for young Wakey to make, but he's got to get it done if he wants to move forward. 100R. John looking to make a recovery of some kind in the late stages of this race. He's got a big gap to the next car in front of him. Got a lot of time to make up if he wants to get there. And Faff behind, a fair way back, so plenty of buffer there. To hope to keep it clean for the remainder of this race. P9 is still not going to be, I know it's towards the bottom of the field, but given that there's only 10 drivers in this race, it's inevitable that you're going to outscore a few, notably the absentees who are not scoring any points this round.
And a P9 is still one position better than what I finished, so I can't say anything at all.
So, not at all. P10. Top 10 counts as top 10 being in P10.
Now,
that's what you're going to think about.
Speaking of the top 10, it's probably worth mentioning that while Woody is currently running P3 on the road, his fuel situation right now is not exactly fantastic. With doing my math right, 6 laps to go, he's got approximately 18% fuel in the tank, so he is going to have to stop a second time.
I think that was the plan actually. Didn't he run? He's run 2 soft stints, and now he's in the box again.
I'd say so. He did pit at the end of lap 9, and
he's probably holding up for rain, isn't he?
I'd say so. He didn't fill the tank when he pitted.
Now that's going to drop him behind Captain Muffin. If it doesn't rain, Woody's going to be in a lot of trouble here.
I'm looking at the sky. I'm looking at the sky, and while it's plenty cloudy, none of them are really dark and ominous enough to suggest that there's going to be rain.
We have a development. Woody's windscreen wiper is on, and there are raindrops on the windshield. Rain is coming.
How many times do I have to be wrong before I just take the hint?
You have influenced this race in ways you never knew you could.
The GT7 gods have decided, Carbonboy's made a call on the weather. We're going to prove him wrong.
Now, the windscreen wipers are going up and down the field, but we don't know exactly how much rain is due to come down. Clearly, these guys believe they can make at least one more lap. It's probably very light rain, like light blue on the radar, so that it's not going to rain very heavily at any given point. But we've got, oh wow, it's very visible on the screen now, which suggests that these guys are going to be dealing with a seriously wet track in a lap's time. So the question now is, do you box for inters now, or do you wait until it tips over the edge?
Just had a blue flag situation with GDR making his way past FAF, who has been a bit naughty. Has already pitted for inters, but has crossed the pit line at some stage and picked himself up a 3-second penalty. But my original point there was he saw the blue flag, moved over to the side of the track and left plenty of room for GDR to come on through. And unfortunately, he's going to have to do it again sometime soon because we've got Jeesh coming in hot.
Well, the straight's a good opportunity to do it. He might give Jeesh a bit of a slipstream down the straight, but the question now is, do you box for inters? Jeesh makes the call, in he goes, and I don't think GDR's made the same call. No, he hasn't.
He has not.
Jeesh in for inters. Has GDR made the correct decision here? To be fair to Jeesh, he kind of has to risk it all at this point. He has to do whatever GDR doesn't if he wants to win, because he is not driving fast enough to beat him on raw pace. Now, the windscreen wiper of GDR is not going in this part of the track, so that suggests that the rain has stopped, but I'm seeing drips on the screen. Look at that. It's looking very heavy now. GDR, let's see how he goes through 100R here. Look at that. You see the vapor trails coming out from the rear tyres, and off goes GDR. He's made a horrendous mistake here by not picking the intermediate tyres. The race was in the bag, and he's gone around. GDR has thrown this race away. Jeesh is coming down to the left-hand of turn 2 now in the Supra on the intermediate tyres. This had thrown the race completely into the 4th dimension. GDR's finally getting going, but he's got absolutely no grip on those soft tyres. And with 4 laps to go, he has to box for inters.
Someone else who just found out the hard way about how wet the track is was unfortunately my teammate Ricky Bobby, who I watched him just brakes completely locked up, sliding like the car was on ice into turn 1, and the car just went dead straight.
And GDR's gone around again. Jeesh has taken first place in this race. What a call it was to box for the inters, and what an error from GDR to throw away a victory in this race in those late stages.
Captain Muffin goes on past and says thank you very much for the P2.
Now VTX Blind Man GT exits the pits on the intermediates with a 3-second penalty as well. Captain Muffin up to P2. That's huge for the McLaren driver. I think 15 seconds is going to be insurmountable for him, but you never know. Wow, what a race it turned out to be. The weather came in and threw everything sideways, including the rain. GDR now down to 4th and really struggling here. Coming into the last sector now, there will be some seriously foul language inside that helmet. He's been throwing everything he can at Jeesh this season, but he has just been coming up short every single time. You know, I feel like we've seen this before this season. I think it was Laguna Seca. He ran out of fuel. So again, strategy catching him out, but the pace is there. GDR's got so much pace and talent, but hasn't been able to convert this season, and Jeesh has just had him cornered at every circuit. The correct, like, has this guy made an incorrect decision this entire season? Jeesh's strategies are absolutely perfect all of the time. It doesn't make sense. Well, actually, I say that, but it does make sense. The amount of practice that this guy does, the amount of commitment he has to this championship, he deserves everything he's getting right now. As having an inside view of it, I can tell you that there's hardly anyone more deserving of his position in the championship than Jeesh right now. And someone else who's performing really well and has had a cracking season so far, Captain Muffin, now sitting P2 on the inters in the McLaren here. Going to run to 2nd in this race. I don't think it'll be enough to unseat GDR in the driver's standings, but it's a huge result for the Muffin Man, the CP Motorsports, and their championship hopes as well, because Hooncorp, of course, currently in 2nd in the team's championship, with CP Motorsports not far behind, sitting in 4th. They are, yeah, it's certainly an interesting dynamic running around at the moment. But all drivers now on the intermediate tyres. So here's our standings as they sit. Jeesh leads the way with a 15-second buffer to Captain Muffin in the McLaren. This would in P3 after a great recovery puts the intermediates on. The strategy came through for him. Young Wakey in P4, another great result so far anyway. 11 seconds ahead of Corey Hack, who's possibly on for his best result of the season so far here in P5. That strategy's really come good for him in the late stages here. Blind Man GT in P6. Ricky Bobby, P7. And he's followed closely by GDR. So GDR might be able to get one more back here as he goes deep at the chicane. A little bit too deep, not able to get something done on Ricky Bobby there.
You did say that all drivers are on the inters. I hate to prove you wrong, but there is one driver who is not.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and I guess Faf is on the wets.
Well, no. There is one driver on the wets who is Corey Hack up in P5, but there is one driver who is not on any sort of wet weather tyre right now.
Would that be John?
Negative.
No.
That would be my teammate, Ricky Bobby.
No way. Where is Ricky Bobby? P8?
P8 currently,
Is
yes.
the track
That
dry?
is why. Well, there is a noticeable dry line.
How has he... Why has he? I don't understand. Captain Muffin has disconnected!
Oh, no.
We've lost
no.
Captain Muffin! Oh, that's
The
a disaster
McLaren-
for the CP Motorsports driver.
The ECU has just decided to shut itself down. Maybe the waterproofing wasn't sufficient, got some water in it, but the ECU has just let go.
Oh, wow. That is so disappointing for Captain Muffin, and a whole lot of points down the drain.
Now,
This
from
would-
memory,
Yep.
having completed more than 2/3 of the race distance, is it? Does he still get
I think he
a
qualifies for
percentage of his
last
points?
place points or some such thing, but that will be decided by the stewards, I'm sure. But the upshot is, Woody gets promoted to P2 here for Brocchio 5 Sim Racing in the BRZ. A great result for the team here if he holds it out to the end of this lap, which I imagine he will. There's not a lot that could go wrong for him. He's got such little pressure on him. You know, I don't know if you can hear this, but this is me trying to manifest the commentator's curse onto Diswood, because I think it would be hugely entertaining if that happened. No, I say that. I don't really want that to happen. I think he's going to lock down this P2 and come across the line to take it. Geesh, coming into the final sector now, nearly a lap up on most of the drivers. And young Wakey is going to take a surprise podium in the late stages here. So, a great drive from him as well. But this man has dominated the season from start to now. 2 rounds to go after this. He takes another win and increases the record for most wins in a single Sector 1 season. Record breaker Distinct Geesh will come across the line to win yet another race this season here at Fuji in the Group 3 Supra for Respawn Esports, ahead of championship rival TX3 GDR down in P6. This Wood coming out of the final corner now for Brocchio 5 Sim Racing. It's his first season back in Sector 1. He's taken a win so far this season at Willow Springs, and he adds another podium to the collection here at Fuji International Speedway across the line for the BRZ team. Brocchio 5 Sim Racing ahead of young Wakey, who will collect yet another podium for Kraken Esports here in the Supra after a very, very quiet and under-the-radar drive. Nicely done by the Kraken Esports driver, the youngest driver in Sector 1, with a podium in the top flight here in Division 1 across the line in these tricky conditions. Corey Hack with a surprise P4 as well. After that disconnection from Muffin, he's promoted to P4 there. Red Mist Racing, almost a podium tonight, and a great way for Corey Hack to score some points before he retires at the end of the season. BTX Blind Man GT, a question mark I'm sure over his point score after that earlier incident in the race. We'll have to have a closer look at that with the stewards later on, but he'll come across the line to claim P5 for Dadson Racing ahead of TX3 GDR, who managed to climb back up to P6 after a disastrous strategy call on lap 20. The Hooncorp driver comes across for P6. Faf, no, not Faf, John, P9. He's been lapped. Faf in P7 for Black Rose, and Ricky Bobby on the soft tyres ran them to the end in P8 and no P10. Geesh, your victor.
Wow. That's a lot to unpack there.
Oh, it really kicked off at the end there, didn't it? It was kind of a all said and done sort of thing in the early stages. And when Jeesh wasn't catching GDR, it almost looked like it was over. GDR had it in the bag, and then the rain hit and sent the race into the fourth dimension, to quote Rocket Powered Mohawk. But here we have our results. So let's take a look at how the race turned out. Distinct Jeesh claims yet another victory here in the Sector 1 Division 1 Championship. Also claiming the fastest lap and, of course, pole position. It's a huge points tally for the Respawn driver here. Diswood with P2. He'll be stoked with that result. That BRZ coming good in the rain, and a great strategy to run through the race for him as well. So that fuel disparity that we talked about with him coming good in the end, and sorting him out a P2 finish. Young Wakey claims the final step on the podium for Kraken Esports in the Supra, and Corey Hack P4, Blindman P5, GDR P6. A disappointing result from him, and I'm sure he'll be unpacking that for a little while. Faf for Black Rose Racing in the GTR there in P7, and Ricky Bobby in P8. John 27 TCT in P9, and Captain Muffin with the most unfortunate technical difficulty possibly in Sector 1 history. That was a huge loss for him there to DNF at that late stage in the race. He came so far just to be kicked from the race. I'll be very interested to see what was the cause of that. I'm sure we'll hear from him later on in the day about whether it was sort of just an internet dropout, or if somebody kicked his internet cable and disconnected him, or if his dog chewed some cables or something like that. I'm not sure. But we'll discuss now, I think. Driver of the day, Carbonboy, over to you, mate.
Well, there's two guys who really had my attention for driver of the day. Obviously, their positions have been elevated, one due to the unfortunate leaving of the race from Captain Muffin. My condolences. I was thinking driver of the day nomination for Young Wacky. He had a bit of a rough start, and a bit of traffic around him in the early stages of the race, but he held it together, put in a really solid middle section. But he was just pipped for my nomination by Woody, running the alternate strat and timed it to absolute perfection in regards to the weather. So, and to pick himself up a podium in the process. Yeah, Woody for my driver of the day nomination.
I have to agree with you there. I'd usually try to pick someone else, but Woody is my driver of the day nomination as well. What a result. P2 here in the BRZ, which is not a great car in a straight line. And to finish in P2 in that car, and he just had such a solid race, you know. Got away from the trouble in the early stages, held it together for the entire race. P2 in the end. Solid points for Brocchio 5 Sim Racing. Drop your nominations in the chat down there. Let us know who you think deserved driver of the day. I've got to say honourable mention to Corey Hack as well. That's got to be his best result of the season so far. P4 in the top flight is a great result for the Red Mist Racing outfit, and will be some much valued team points, I think, going forward in the rest of the season. So that is it for the Group A races tonight. I hope you all enjoyed very much so the action today. We will be back next week for Fuji once again. Group B, Division 4 and Division 2 action coming at you next week from Fuji International Speedway in Japan. But that will be us signing off. Any last words from you, Carbonboy? That will be us signing off for the evening, and we will be heading out and I think raiding the comms box drinks cooler for a beer tonight, because that was a solid night of racing and very exciting. So we will see you all again very soon. Until then, like, subscribe, and enjoy your evening.